There are moments in history when the earth itself seems to whisper, quiet hints of civilizations that rose, vanished, and left behind questions no scholar has ever fully answered. Across deserts, deep beneath oceans, carved into mountainsides, and buried under forgotten soil lie artifacts and structures so strange, so impossibly advanced or hauntingly primitive, that they defy the logic of everything we think we know. These are not legends. They are real discoveries, giant monoliths aligned with celestial precision, ancient objects crafted with techniques far beyond their time, and human remains found in places they should never have existed. For decades, archaeologists, historians, and scientists have tried to untangle these mysteries, only to find that each explanation raises even deeper, darker questions. Why were these relics created? Who built them? And what knowledge have we lost in the vast silence of the ancient world? Tonight we journey into the heart of the unknown, where evidence is real, but answers remain elusive. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the bizarre, unexplained archaeological mysteries that still refuse to be solved. Nestled on the windswept plains of Suffolk, England, the landscape seems at first glance unremarkable, a gentle sweep of grassy fields, punctuated by low, rolling mounds. But among these modest hills lies a secret that, when unearthed in 1939, would forever alter our understanding of early medieval Europe. It is here, under layers of soil and centuries of silence, that the Sutton ship burial rests, a remarkable testament to a world both familiar and enigmatic, a bridge between history and mystery. The first mound, barely distinguishable from the earth around it, concealed an astonishing treasure. A ship nearly 90 feet long, its timbers long decayed, yet leaving a ghostly outline in the sand. Within its hollowed hull, archaeologists discovered an extraordinary array of artifacts: an ornate ceremonial helmet, intricately decorated shields, gold coins, and silver bowls, each piece meticulously placed. These objects spoke of wealth and power, of craftsmanship that rivals anything in contemporary Europe. Yet they also hinted at ritual, of a burial that was meant to preserve not only a body but a story, a memory, a legend. What makes Sutton so compelling is the tension between what we know and what remains elusive. The burial is widely believed to belong to a high-ranking Anglo-Saxon, perhaps King Radwald of East Anglia, who ruled in the early 7th century. Historical records and genealogies support this possibility, and yet no definitive proof exists. Who exactly lay in that chamber, draped in gold, and surrounded by treasures of both local and distant origin? The very identity of the figure invites speculation. Was this an earthly king, revered and feared, or did the burial carry deeper, almost symbolic significance, connecting the living to the sacred or the supernatural? The craftsmanship of the artifacts only deepens the intrigue. The Sutton helmet, with its ghostly face mask and delicate filigree, appears almost otherworldly. Its design, echoing motifs found across Scandinavia and even the Byzantine world, raises questions about the flow of ideas, trade, and cultural exchange in a period often imagined as isolated and primitive. How did such a society, emerging from the shadows of Rome's collapse, achieve such artistry and sophistication? And what did these symbols mean to those who created and beheld them nearly 14 centuries ago? Even the ship itself invites speculation. Though no longer intact, its buried form suggested a vessel of ceremonial grandeur rather than purely practical design. Why choose a ship as a final resting place? Was it merely a reflection of status, or did it carry a deeper meaning? Perhaps a metaphorical journey into the afterlife, a sacred passage to realms unseen? Across northern Europe, ship burials appear sporadically, hinting at a shared belief system, yet Sutton Hoo remains exceptional for its scale, preservation, and the wealth of artifacts it contained. What, then, did this singular interment signify in the cultural and spiritual imagination of its time? The site continues to spark questions beyond historical scholarship. Some researchers have noted curious anomalies in the arrangement of objects, suggesting ritualistic patterns that defy simple interpretation. Others have drawn attention to the apparent connections between Sutton Hoo and older, almost mythic traditions. Burials that echo in folklore, in epic poems, and in tales of gods and heroes. Could Sutton Hoo represent more than the grave of a powerful ruler? Might it serve as a coded message, a deliberate statement intended to convey authority, cosmology, or even prophecy to those who would come after? Even the provenance of some items remains puzzling. Gold coins from distant lands, garnets that trace their origins to India, and objects echoing craftsmanship from continental Europe all suggest a network of connections far broader than might be expected. How did these materials travel such distances, and what did they signify when placed together in this burial? Each object tells a story, yet when woven together, the narrative becomes tantalizingly incomplete, a tapestry with gaps that invite imagination without allowing certainty. Walking among the mounds today, one cannot help but feel a quiet sense of reverence. The wind sweeps across the fields as if whispering fragments of lost voices. The grave lies silent beneath the soil, its secrets preserved yet tantalizingly inaccessible. Scholars continue to study and debate, employing modern technologies, ground-penetrating radar, metallurgical analysis, and isotopic studies, to piece together the past, yet some questions resist resolution. Was this a political statement, a religious act, or both? Was the individual within truly a king, or does the grave tell a more complex story of identity, power, and ritual in an age we scarcely understand? Sutton Hoo reminds us that the past is never fully knowable. Each artifact, each mound, each trace of human intent is a bridge between eras, a testament to lives lived, beliefs held, and choices made long before our own. Yet for all the answers uncovered, the site retains its aura of mystery. It invites us to ask, to wonder, to imagine. What else remains buried beneath the earth, waiting for discovery? What truths, half told or entirely hidden, might yet emerge to challenge everything we think we know about the early medieval world? As the echoes of ancient northern Europe fade, we turn our gaze southward to the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean, where the Nile meets the sea. Beneath the tranquil waves off the coast of modern-day Egypt lies a city that vanished almost without a trace, swallowed by the very waters that once nourished it. Heracleion, known in antiquity as Thonis, was a bustling port, a hub of trade, religion, and cultural exchange. A city that rivaled even Alexandria in its wealth and influence. Yet for centuries, it was thought to be little more than legend, mentioned fleetingly in texts, its existence doubted by scholars until the early 2000s, when modern technology revealed a sunken metropolis preserved beneath the waves. Diving into the murky depths, archaeologists discovered a city frozen in time. Massive stone temples, monumental statues, intricately carved sphinxes, and golden coins lay scattered across the seabed. Among them, colossal figures of pharaohs and deities seemed to gaze silently toward the heavens, their faces etched with the authority and mystery of an age long past. Even the urban plan, streets, canals, docks, suggests a civilization of extraordinary sophistication, a thriving center whose influence reached across the Mediterranean. And yet, despite this evidence, Heracleion remains enigmatic, its story fragmented by centuries of inundation and decay. The circumstances of its disappearance remain deeply puzzling. Historical records hint at earthquakes, rising waters, and subsidence. but the scale of Heracleon's vanishing seems almost deliberate, almost purposeful. How could a city of such prominence simply sink beneath the waves, leaving only whispers of its glory? Modern geology provides some explanations: tectonic shifts, soil liquefaction. But even with these insights, the imagery of entire temples and colossal statues resting silently on the seabed evokes a sense of awe, a reminder that history sometimes eludes our understanding. Equally intriguing are the artifacts recovered from the site. Coins bearing inscriptions, votive offerings, and ceremonial objects tell of a city deeply entwined with both commerce and the divine. Among these relics are items that seem to defy expectation: ivory carvings of exotic animals, amulets bearing symbols of distant cultures, and bronze anchors large enough to have moored ships from across the ancient world. These findings hint at Heracleon's role not merely as a port, but as a nexus of ideas, cultures, and spiritual practice. Who were the people who walked these streets? What rituals and beliefs guided their daily lives? And how did they perceive the forces that ultimately claimed their city? The temples themselves pose questions that continue to fascinate researchers. The Great Temple of Amun-Gareb, for instance, is aligned with precision, its colossal stone columns and carved reliefs suggesting not only architectural mastery, but also a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and ritual symbolism. Some scholars speculate that such alignment might reflect celestial observations, a calendar of divine significance, or even a map of cosmic order. Yet, without written records detailing the intentions behind these constructions, every theory remains provisional, every interpretation speculative. Could the design of the temples encode knowledge lost to time, secrets of navigation, cosmology, or perhaps spiritual insight intended for the eyes of the ancients alone? Even more mysterious is the evidence of daily life preserved underwater. Anchors still lie in the channels where ships once docked, amphorae and pottery scattered as though abandoned in haste, human artifacts intertwined with marine growth, creating scenes both haunting and surreal. Did the city fall suddenly, swept away by a cataclysmic event? Or did it decline gradually until it was claimed incrementally by the sea? And why did no record survive in the broader historical consciousness to preserve Heracleon's legacy in greater detail? Beyond the physical artifacts, Heracleion offers tantalizing glimpses of its cultural and religious significance. It was a major center for the worship of Amun, and rituals there likely influenced the religious landscape of later Egypt. Pilgrims, traders, and foreign emissaries would have converged here, exchanging goods, ideas, and stories. And yet, in all accounts, there is an undercurrent of the uncanny, a city whose power was matched by its vulnerability, whose existence straddled myth and reality, leaving behind a legacy as much of mystery as of fact. Some fringe theories suggest that Heracleon's submersion was not purely natural, hinting at hidden knowledge or forbidden practices that might have prompted a deliberate abandonment or concealment. Others speculate on connections to Atlantis or other lost civilizations, drawing parallels between sudden underwater catastrophes in different regions of the ancient world. While these ideas remain speculative, they speak to the profound human impulse to seek meaning in the inexplicable, to trace patterns where history has left only fragments. Today, diving over the ruins, one can still feel the weight of time pressing down through the water. The city's streets are silent, its grand facades eroded yet resilient, a submerged testament to human ingenuity and vulnerability. Heracleion reminds us that even the most powerful civilizations are not immune to nature's forces, nor to the passage of time. And yet, beneath the currents, the city's stories endure, waiting to be read, interpreted, and imagined. As we study these ruins, questions inevitably multiply. How many other cities have disappeared beneath the waves, leaving no trace but legend? What knowledge, what culture, what history lies submerged, waiting for the modern world to rediscover it. Heracleion is more than a lost city. It is a mirror, reflecting both the achievements of humanity and the mysteries that continue to elude us. It invites us to ponder not only what we know about the ancient world, but also what remains hidden, tantalizingly beyond reach, beneath the shifting tides of history and the silent, endless sea. From the submerged splendor of Heracleion, we now turn to a far more arid and forbidding landscape, the vast, wind-swept deserts of northwestern China. Here, in the remote Tarim Basin, the sands stretch endlessly under a relentless sun, broken only by the jagged outlines of distant mountains and the occasional oasis shimmering like a mirage. It is within this harsh, seemingly inhospitable terrain that one of archaeology's most perplexing discoveries has emerged: the Tarim Mummies. These remarkably well-preserved human remains, some dating back over 4,000 years, lie in silent testament to lives lived in an environment as unforgiving as it is mysterious. The first mummies were uncovered in the early 20th century, their discovery shocking both for their preservation and their striking features. Unlike other ancient populations of East Asia, many of these individuals bore tall, slender physiques, high cheekbones, and long reddish or blonde hair, features more commonly associated with European populations. Wrapped in elaborately woven textiles and accompanied by finely crafted artifacts, these people were clearly sophisticated, yet their presence in this remote desert remains enigmatic. How did communities with such distinct physical and cultural characteristics come to inhabit this isolated region so long ago? Even the preservation of the mummies is extraordinary. The arid conditions of the Tarim Basin, combined with natural salts in the soil, have kept skin, hair, and clothing intact for millennia, providing an almost eerie window into the past. Woolen tunics, leather boots, and intricate baskets suggest a society with advanced textile skills and domestic technology. Archaeologists have painstakingly studied the burial methods, noting that the bodies were often placed in shallow graves with careful orientation, perhaps reflecting ritual or cosmological beliefs now lost to time. Each mummy, each garment, each artifact seems to whisper fragments of a story. Yet the full narrative remains frustratingly out of reach. Mainstream scholarship suggests that the Tarim Basin was part of a complex network of migration and cultural exchange during the Bronze Age. Genetic studies indicate a surprising blend of West Eurasian and East Asian ancestry, implying that these mummies may represent an early wave of long-distance migration across the steppes of Eurasia trade routes. Environmental shifts and human movement might explain part of their presence. Yet the precise origins, motivations, and cultural practices of these people remain unclear. How did they navigate such an isolated and challenging environment? And what knowledge, beliefs, and technologies did they bring with them? The artifacts found alongside the mummies add further intrigue. Felt hats, wooden combs, and twined ropes are simple at first glance, yet their craftsmanship reflects advanced skills, suggesting a society capable of both survival and artistry in equal measure. The textiles, some dyed in vivid colors, hint at connections far beyond the Tarim Basin, perhaps stretching to Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and even Europe. How were these materials and techniques transmitted across such vast distances in an age without written records or modern transportation? And what stories, encoded in fabric and fiber, lie waiting to be deciphered? Equally compelling are the enigmatic burial practices. Some mummies show signs of unusual positioning, wrapped in shrouds that seem to follow symbolic patterns. Others are found with tools and weapons, yet not in ways that fit neatly into known funerary customs of contemporary civilizations. These details suggest that the Tarim inhabitants had their own spiritual and ritual frameworks, distinct from neighboring societies, yet we are left to speculate about the meanings. Were these objects intended for the afterlife, markers of status or symbolic statements we have yet to understand? Fringe theories have also emerged, attempting to account for the mummy's unique features and unexpected presence. Some suggest connections to lost or forgotten migrations, perhaps linked to ancient seafaring or overland trade that predates known records. Others propose more speculative ideas, hinting at forgotten civilizations, alternative genetic pathways, or even encounters with travelers from distant lands. While mainstream archaeology approaches the evidence with caution, the gaps in knowledge allow the imagination to wander, illustrating just how little we truly know about the complexity of human movement and adaptation in the ancient world. The mummies also provoke questions about the intersection of environment, culture, and survival. How did these communities thrive in a desert that seems inhospitable even by modern standards? What strategies of agriculture, animal husbandry, or trade allowed them not only to survive, but to sustain a society capable of crafting intricate textiles, burying their dead with care, and maintaining distinct cultural identities across generations? Each answer seems to raise further questions, as if the desert itself guards its secrets jealously. Standing in the shadow of these ancient individuals, one cannot help but feel a sense of awe and humility. The Tarim mummies are not merely archaeological curiosities. They are reminders of humanity's remarkable adaptability, its ability to traverse continents, endure harsh climates, and create cultures that flourish far from the centers of classical civilization. Yet for all the science applied, for all the genetic, linguistic, and cultural studies undertaken, many mysteries remain. Who were these people truly? What compelled them to journey into the desert, and what became of their descendants? How much of their knowledge, their art, their rituals, has been irretrievably lost to time? As we gaze upon these mummies, their preserved faces staring silently through the millennia, we are invited into a dialogue with the past, an invitation to wonder, to question, to imagine. The Tarim Basin, once a crossroads of human endeavor, remains a repository of enigmas. And though archaeologists continue to piece together fragments of evidence, the full story of these remarkable people has yet to be told. What else lies buried beneath the sands, waiting to illuminate or confound our understanding of the ancient world? From the silent sands of the Tarim Basin, our journey carries us westward, deeper into the heart of ancient Egypt, into a world where time, memory, and kingship intertwined in ways both symbolic and unsettling. Here, near the sacred city of Abydos, the desert meets the remnants of one of the oldest spiritual centers in human history. The air is still, heavy with heat and the faint scent of dust and stone. And within the halls of the Temple of Seti I, carved into a polished limestone wall, lies a relic unlike any other: the Abydos King List. At first glance, it appears simple: 3 rows of cartouches, each containing the royal name of a pharaoh. But when viewed up close, under the muted light that filters into the temple's inner chambers, the list takes on an almost sacred presence. It feels less like a historical record and more like a doorway into Egypt's enigmatic past. Each name is meticulously carved, each symbol rendered with the precision and reverence reserved for divine authority. This was not a casual document. It was a statement, intentional, curated, and deeply symbolic. The list begins with Menes, the legendary founder of the First Dynasty, and continues through nearly 3,000 years of royal lineage. Yet what makes the Abydos King List so compelling is not the names that appear, but the ones that do not. Entire dynasties are missing. Pharaonic lines are erased as if they never existed. The female pharaoh Hatshepsut, one of the most successful rulers in Egyptian history, is absent. Akhenaten, the heretical king who briefly upended Egypt's religious system, is omitted. Even Tutankhamun, whose tomb would captivate the modern world, is nowhere to be found. Why would ancient scribes carve a list that deliberately excludes some of Egypt's most influential rulers? Was it an act of political propaganda? A theological correction? Or something more enigmatic? A coded message shaped by beliefs, rituals, or historical events now lost to us? Mainstream Egyptology proposes a logical explanation. The list reflects the official doctrine of Seti I's time, acknowledging only those kings deemed legitimate within the traditional cult of Amun and within Egypt's long-established ideology of divine order. Those who disrupted this order, religiously, politically, or socially, were simply removed. In the eyes of Seti's scribes, erasure was restoration, but the deeper one looks, the more questions arise. For a culture so obsessed with memory, lineage, and the afterlife, the act of erasing kings carries profound symbolism. Were these omissions a form of spiritual quarantine, protecting Egypt's sacred continuity? Or could the list represent something more cryptic, a reconstruction of history that aligns with a cosmological narrative rather than a historical one? Some fringe interpretations propose that the Abydos king list is not merely a historical document, but a spiritual one, structured according to Egypt's sacred numerology or metaphysical principles. Others suggest that the list might preserve a version of history far older than the conventional timeline, one rooted in mythic cycles or forgotten epics hinted at in obscure texts. Even more speculative theories wonder if the omissions point to gaps in our understanding of Egypt's early dynastic development, periods of turmoil or alternate lines of kingship that were intentionally obscured from public memory. The hall itself heightens the mystery. Carved deep within Seti I's temple, a place dedicated to Osiris, the god of the afterlife, the list occupies a ceremonial corridor, a space not easily accessible to ordinary visitors in ancient times. This was not a display for the masses. It was positioned like a ritual object, a sacred ledger of divine rule. The temple's alignment, its reliefs, and the surrounding chambers suggest that the list may have played a role in religious ceremonies, perhaps conferring legitimacy upon Seti's own reign by situating him within a carefully curated lineage. And yet, some questions remain stubbornly unresolved. The list's omissions are too consistent, too deliberate to be accidental. They suggest intention, but intention toward what end? If Seti sought only validation, why omit rulers like Tutankhamun, who reinstated the old religion after Akhenaten's reforms? Why exclude Hatshepsut, whose prosperous reign strengthened the very system Seti claimed to uphold? These choices seem contradictory, even puzzling, unless the list served a purpose that modern interpretation has yet to unveil. Another layer of mystery lies in the existence of multiple king lists across Egypt. At Saqqara, Karnak, Turin, each one different, each shaped by its own priorities. Some lists preserve names Abydos omits, others obscure figures Abydos includes. Together they form a patchwork of memory rather than a singular authoritative history. What does this tell us about ancient Egypt's relationship to truth? Did the Egyptians view history as something fluid, malleable, ritualistic, shaped by myth as much as fact? Or were they preserving multiple truths, each one valid within its specific religious or political context? For modern archaeologists, the Abydos king list remains both a treasure and a puzzle. It offers invaluable insight into royal chronology, yet it also challenges the straightforward narrative we often impose on the past. It reminds us that history is not only about what is preserved, but also about what is intentionally forgotten. Every omission is a clue, every gap a silent testimony to conflicts, ideologies, and beliefs that shaped an entire civilization. Standing before the list today, in the quiet, dimly lit corridor where time seems suspended, one cannot help but feel the presence of something larger than a mere inscription. There is a sense of reverence, of deliberate mystery. The wall speaks in symbols, not explanations. It preserves a lineage, yet withholds its full meaning. And so we are left to wonder, what stories lie behind the missing names? What histories were rewritten, reinterpreted, or erased? And how many more secrets might still be hidden within Egypt's temples, waiting for a discovery that could reshape our understanding of the ancient world? From the shadowed halls of Abydos, where history and intentional silence intertwine, our journey now shifts across continents to a very different kind of mystery. One not carved in stone or recorded in royal lineage, but unearthed unexpectedly in the rugged soils of the American West. Far from ancient temples and desert tombs, in the quiet town of Nampa, Idaho, a discovery was made in the late 19th century that continues to perplex researchers, challenge assumptions, and stir debate more than a century later. It began during routine industrial work in 1889. A crew drilling for water reached a depth of more than 90 meters when something small, something utterly unexpected, was brought up with the extracted soil. Resting in the drill's sand pump was a tiny human figurine, delicately formed, unmistakably shaped by human hands. Barely an inch and a half tall, the figure appeared to portray a woman, complete with detailed facial features, clothing, and carefully crafted proportions. Its surface bore signs of deliberate shaping and firing, as if created using techniques known from ancient ceramic traditions. What made the figurine extraordinary was not its design, but its context. According to the stratigraphy reported at the time, the layer from which it emerged was believed to be over 2 million years old. It was a claim that, if taken at face value, would upend the timeline of human history entirely. Modern humans did not exist at that time, nor did any known species capable of creating such an artifact. How then could a crafted figurine have been found in such ancient geological deposits? Could the layer have been disturbed by natural processes? Could the object have fallen into the drill shaft from above? Or does the discovery point toward something still unexplained, something not yet accounted for in the conventional narrative of human origins? Mainstream archaeology has long favored caution. Many scholars argue that the figurine's presence in such deep strata is best explained by contamination. Soil displaced, layers mixed, or perhaps the object accidentally introduced during the drilling process. These explanations fit comfortably within our current scientific understanding, aligning the figurine with the known timeline of human development. And yet, even these cautious interpretations do not fully diminish the strangeness of the find. The craftsmanship appears deliberate and refined, more consistent with known ceramic traditions dating back only a few thousand years. Why, then, was it discovered in a context so seemingly inconsistent with its presumed age? The figurine itself remains a puzzle. Its tiny form, though roughly made, contains surprising detail. The faint suggestion of hair, the outline of limbs, the contours of clothing. Some researchers note its resemblance to ancient fertility symbols found across multiple cultures, figures associated with ritual, belief, or the representation of the human form. If the Nampa figurine indeed belonged to a later indigenous culture, or to settlers in the region, why was it found so deeply buried? Was it carried downward by fissures or water movement over centuries? Or was the stratigraphy misinterpreted due to the drilling method used? These are reasonable possibilities, yet they do not fully dispel the aura of mystery that surrounds the object. More speculative theories have emerged over time. Some propose that the figurine might represent evidence of an unknown chapter of human presence in the Americas, suggesting migrations or civilizations far older than currently believed. Others speculate about cultural remnants placed into deep geological layers by ancient natural disasters, volcanic ash deposits, or tectonic shifts. Still others explore more fringe interpretations, imagining lost civilizations, forgotten epics, or cycles of humanity extending beyond accepted chronologies. While these ideas remain unverified, they reflect the profound sense of wonder the figurine inspires, an invitation to question the boundaries of what we think we know. In studying the Nampa figurine, one is struck by the tension between simplicity and complexity. It is a small object, fragile, almost insignificant in size, yet its implications ripple outward into vast questions about archaeology, geology, and human history. It challenges our reliance on context, forcing us to consider how much we trust the earth to preserve the past in neat, orderly layers. It reminds us that discoveries are sometimes accidental, ambiguous, and difficult to fit seamlessly into established narratives. Walking through the quiet museum rooms where replicas of the figurine are occasionally displayed, visitors often find themselves drawn into contemplation. The shape is unmistakably human, yet its origin is shrouded in uncertainty. Was it crafted millennia ago by people whose stories have vanished into the soil? Was it displaced by the unpredictable forces of nature? Or does it represent an unsolved anomaly, an outlier that refuses to be neatly categorized? As with many archaeological mysteries, the answers remain elusive. The figurine invites speculation, but resists resolution. It stands as a reminder that even in the modern age, with powerful tools and advanced scientific methods, the past can still surprise us, sometimes profoundly. And so the Nampa figurine remains suspended between worlds, between possibility and doubt, between science and the unknown. What truths lie beneath the fields of Idaho, buried deeper than expected? What other artifacts, if any, remain hidden in the strata of time, waiting to challenge our understanding of human antiquity? The question lingers, quiet but persistent. How much of our past has yet to be uncovered? As our journey continues deeper into the realm of unexplained archaeological enigmas, we shift from the isolated deserts and forgotten tombs of ancient civilizations to a quiet island in the heart of the Mediterranean, a place where stone remembers far more than history has recorded. The transition is subtle, from whispers of unusual artifacts and lost chronologies to a sweeping landscape carved by lines so old, so numerous, and so perplexing that they seem less like marks of human labor and more like inscriptions left by an unknown hand. This is Malta, and scattered across its sun-bleached limestone plateaus lie the mysterious tracks known simply as the cart ruts. At first glance, the sight seems deceptively simple under an open sky, across fields dotted with low shrubs and ancient stone structures. Long grooves run parallel to one another, sometimes straight, sometimes meandering as if guided by an uncertain path. They stretch for meters, then tens of meters, then hundreds, until they disappear over ridges or plunge abruptly toward the coastline, where some end mysteriously beneath the sea. Each pair of grooves is carved roughly into the bedrock, spaced at a distance not far from the width of a modern vehicle's wheels. Their average depth varies, some barely incised, others sinking nearly half a meter into the stone, and their surfaces, smoothed by time, tell a silent story of repeated use, or perhaps something else entirely. What were these tracks? Who carved them? And most importantly, when? These questions form the core of one of Malta's most enduring archaeological puzzles. Most scholars suggest that the ruts were made during the Bronze Age, somewhere between 2000 and 700 BCE. According to this mainstream view, simple wooden carts, loaded with agricultural or construction materials, repeatedly followed the same routes, gradually wearing grooves into the soft limestone. Over centuries, the stone yielded under friction, producing the pattern we see today. It is a practical explanation, grounded, familiar, and easy to imagine. And yet, many aspects of the cart ruts refuse to fit neatly into this model. For instance, the depth of certain ruts far exceeds what wooden wheels could produce without breaking under pressure. Some parallel tracks run at angles or over slopes so steep that no cart, ancient or otherwise, could realistically traverse them without overturning. There are places where ruts split, converge, or overlap, almost like an ancient transportation network, but without any identifiable population centers or settlements to justify such complex infrastructure. At Misra Gar il-Kabir, sometimes called Clapham Junction, due to the extraordinary density of intersecting ruts, the patterns become even more perplexing. Here, hundreds of grooves weave together across the plateau, forming intersections that appear less like purposeful roads and more like layers of movement or layers of history, superimposed over time. Some tracks seem to lead nowhere. Others begin abruptly, as though the starting point has been lost or forgotten beneath the earth. Then there is the most intriguing detail of all: the ruts that vanish beneath the waves. Along the coast at San Juan and other locations, the grooves continue underwater, descending into the sea as though once part of a landscape that existed before the shoreline shifted. This raises profound questions. Were the cart ruts carved at a time when sea levels were dramatically lower? And if so, how far back does their origin truly reach? Could they predate the Bronze Age entirely, possibly extending into prehistory, when Malta's geography was strikingly different? Some researchers have proposed more unconventional interpretations. Perhaps the tracks were not created by carts at all. Could they have been carved intentionally, serving some ritual or symbolic function no longer understood? Could they represent irrigation channels, quarrying marks, or guides for moving large stones, tools not of transportation, but of construction? Other theories wander further from mainstream archaeology. A few investigators suggest that Malta's ancient landscape may have been shaped by cultures far older than the island's accepted timeline allows. Cultures capable of megalithic architecture whose purposes remain hidden behind millennia of erosion and silence. Some even look toward geological processes, natural channels formed by water erosion or chemical dissolution of the limestone. Yet these explanations falter in the face of the rut's consistent spacing, parallel lines, and clear directional intent, features unlikely to form through purely natural forces. And then there is the most speculative notion of all, that the ruts might represent the remnants of a technology now lost. Not advanced in the modern sense, but sophisticated in a way we fail to recognize. Perhaps involving tools, sleds, or transport methods no longer preserved in the archaeological record. Could ancient Maltese builders have used a system we simply do not understand? A technology that left only these deep scars in the earth. As we trace our fingers along the grooves, following the pathways carved into stone thousands of years ago, it becomes clear that the Maltese cart ruts hold a quiet power. They do not demand answers. They do not insist upon any single interpretation. Instead, they invite contemplation, asking us to consider how much of human history remains unrecorded, how much lies buried beneath rising seas, and how much slipped beyond memory long before the first written word. Why do these tracks cross the island with such relentless purpose? What was the world like when these lines were first etched into the bedrock? And what other clues, perhaps still hidden beneath layers of soil or beneath the waters surrounding Malta, might one day reshape our understanding of their origin? For now, the cart ruts remain as they have for millennia, exposed to the sun, open to the winds, and quietly defiant in the face of certainty. A carved network of forgotten paths leading into a past we have yet to fully decipher. Reminders that even the most solid stone can hold mysteries as deep as time itself. And so we move forward, carrying this unresolved puzzle with us. Another enigmatic chapter in a world where the ancient and unexplained continue to whisper from beneath the earth, asking questions we are still learning how to ask. From the soft, windswept plateaus of Malta, where ancient cart ruts silently carve stories into stone, we continue our journey eastward. The Mediterranean fades behind us, and the landscape transforms. Rock gives way to desert. The air warms, and the horizon stretches into the ochre glow of Upper Egypt. Here, among granite quarries that once fueled the ambitions of pharaohs, lies another enigma, massive, immovable, and frozen in time. It is called the Unfinished Obelisk of Aswan, a monument that was never raised, a story that was never completed, and a mystery that still echoes through the ancient granite walls that cradle it. At first sight, the sheer scale of the object is overwhelming. Carved directly into the bedrock, the obelisk lies within a sunken pit, its form unmistakably that of Egypt's iconic monolithic structures. But unlike the polished giants that stand proudly in Luxor, Karnak, or Paris, this one rests horizontal, still bound to the earth from which it was born. Nearly 42 meters long and estimated to weigh around 1,200 tons, it would have been the largest stone monument ever quarried by human hands, had it ever been completed. The surrounding quarry is warm, quiet, and strangely intimate. A few steps bring you close enough to touch its surface, still marked with the chisel lines of craftsmen from over 3,500 years ago. Here, the past does not appear as distant as it often does in the ruins of temples or tombs. Instead, it feels paused, interrupted, as though the workers had set down their tools only moments ago. But why was this colossal project abandoned? The standard explanation is practical and straightforward. Partway through the carving process, a flaw, a deep crack, emerged in the granite. Such a fracture would have made the obelisk unstable, impossible to raise without shattering. And so, the workers stopped. The monument was left where it lay. Time passed. Sand drifted. The desert shifted. And the unfinished obelisk waited in silence for millennia. Yet, as with many archaeological puzzles, the simplicity of this explanation invites deeper questions. Standing before this immense monument, one is struck by its audacity. Why did ancient engineers attempt a project so ambitious, so risky, and so logistically complex? The transportation of obelisks, even smaller ones, remains a feat that challenges modern engineers. How did the ancient Egyptians intend to move a 1,200-ton monolith from its quarry to the river, and then hundreds of kilometers north to its intended temple complex? The Nile provides a clue, yet the precise methods remain debated, reconstructed mostly through theory and educated guesswork. Some Egyptologists argue that the obelisk was meant to be raised during the reign of Queen Hatshepsut, known for her bold architectural undertakings. If so, it would have symbolized divine authority on an unprecedented scale. But without inscriptions, without a finished surface, its intended patron remains uncertain who ordered its creation, and for what ritual or political purpose. The deeper one looks, the more curious the details become. For example, geologists studying the pit have noted unusual patterns in the carving marks, suggesting the use of hard dolerite pounders. But even with these tools, the precision required to extract such a monolith, and the sheer labor involved, feels almost unimaginable. Thousands of workers may have been required, carving day and night for months or even years. And yet, despite this monumental effort, the project was halted abruptly, with no evidence of attempts to repurpose or salvage the granite. Then there are the broader questions, often whispered at the edges of mainstream archaeology. How did the Egyptians acquire such sophisticated stoneworking skills so early in their history? Some researchers point to the near-flawless geometry of other obelisks, the mirror-smooth faces, the elegantly carved hieroglyphs, and wonder, were techniques used that we no longer fully understand? Could there have been knowledge, lost over time, that allowed ancient artisans to manipulate hard stone with a degree of efficiency we currently struggle to replicate. Others, stepping gently into more speculative territory, have proposed alternative interpretations of the unfinished obelisk. Was it truly abandoned only because of a crack? Or could it have served some other purpose? Some fringe theories suggest it may have been part of a larger quarrying system, a test piece, or even a geological study conducted by ancient engineers. Others ask whether the crack itself appeared naturally, or was the project halted for reasons we have yet to uncover? Still more imaginative voices point toward unexplored possibilities. Did ancient builders possess techniques or tools, now lost to history, that enabled them to work with massive stones in ways modern scholars don't fully grasp? Or might the unfinished obelisk represent the limits of their abilities, a boundary they attempted to cross but ultimately could not? The quarry itself offers subtle clues. Channels cut around the obelisk show how workers attempted to separate it from the bedrock below. The precision of these cuts suggests not only immense skill, but also an intricate understanding of stone behavior. And yet, despite this expertise, something went wrong, something significant enough to halt the work entirely. One cannot stand in the presence of the unfinished obelisk without feeling the weight of what might have been. Its sheer size hints at ambitions larger than we often attribute to the ancient world. Ambitions not only to build, but to challenge nature itself, to command stone, shape landscapes, and raise monuments that reached toward the divine. But this monument was never raised. It was never transported. It was never polished, inscribed, or consecrated. Instead, it remains eternally unfinished, caught between vision and reality, intention and impossibility. And so the obelisk becomes more than a monument. It becomes a question. What does it reveal about the ancient Egyptians, their capabilities, their limitations, their knowledge? What secrets remain hidden within the granite quarries of Aswan, untouched by modern hands? And if this is merely one project among thousands, what else might have been attempted, abandoned, or simply lost to the sands of time? The unfinished obelisk stands, or rather lies, as a silent testament to an ancient world whose ingenuity still exceeds our expectations. A world filled with mysteries that challenge not only our understanding of history, but our understanding of what humans were capable of achieving long before recorded memory began. And as we leave Aswan behind, stepping once more into the vast landscape of unanswered questions, the obelisk remains where it has always been, waiting, unfinished, and still holding secrets we may not yet be ready to uncover. As we leave the granite quarries of Aswan behind, the unfinished monument lying silent in its cradle of stone, we continue our journey eastward, moving from the scorching sands of ancient Egypt to the humid air of the Indian subcontinent. Here, among the bustling crowds and layered histories of Delhi, stands a mystery unlike any other. Not a colossal monument carved from earth, nor a forgotten relic buried beneath time, but a single slender column rising quietly into the open sky. At first glance, the iron pillar of Delhi seems simple, almost modest. It stands just over 7 meters tall, unadorned except for a short Sanskrit inscription near its top. Its dark, smooth surface contrasts softly with the lighter sandstone walls of the Qutb complex around it, a place where centuries of architectural traditions, religions, and empires converge. Visitors walk past, pause for a moment, touch it, photograph it, and move on. But this pillar, forged more than 1,600 years ago, possesses a property that has baffled metallurgists, historians, and engineers for generations. Despite standing exposed to monsoon rains, blistering heat, airborne dust, and changing climates, it has barely corroded. In a world where modern iron rusts in a matter of years, how has this ancient pillar survived more than a millennium and a half in near-perfect condition? The mainstream explanation points to a unique combination of materials and environment. Ancient Indian ironworkers, particularly during the Gupta period, were known for their advanced metallurgical skills. The pillars' exceptionally high phosphorus content, low sulfur levels, and the trace presence of slag particles are believed to have formed a protective layer known as misawite, a passive, rust-resistant film that developed naturally over centuries. This layer, scientists argue, prevents moisture from penetrating the iron beneath. But even within this accepted explanation, questions linger. The protective layer is remarkably uniform and unusually resilient. Why did it form so consistently on this pillar, and why do we not see similar longevity in other ancient iron artifacts, even those produced around the same era? Scholars have found that the specific combination of environmental conditions, humidity cycles, atmospheric chemistry, and the pillar's microenvironment may have contributed to this effect. But the precision of these conditions seems almost uncanny. Standing before the pillar, one cannot help but feel the weight of time pressing in around it. Empires rose and vanished. Religions flourished and faded. Monuments were built, destroyed, and rebuilt. Yet this single column endured, untouched by decay. The inscription near its top, written in elegant Brahmi script, attributes the pillar to a king often identified as Chandragupta II, a ruler of the Gupta dynasty. The text praises the king's valor and suggests that the pillar was originally erected elsewhere, likely as part of a temple or religious complex, before being relocated to its present site centuries later. How it was transported remains uncertain. Moving a 6-ton iron column across early medieval India would have been a formidable task. But even its origins spark debates. Some researchers point out that the inscription is worn and incomplete, leaving room for alternative interpretations. Was the pillar built to honor a king, as the text suggests, or could it have served a ritual or astronomical purpose? Its near-perfect vertical alignment over centuries, despite being moved, has fueled both scholarly inquiry and speculative theories. Among the more fringe interpretations are claims that the pillar represents lost metallurgical knowledge, perhaps even a technique passed down from earlier civilizations whose traces have vanished. Others suggest that its resistance to corrosion might point to a purposeful formula, a technological sophistication that was later forgotten or abandoned. Could ancient Indian artisans have possessed knowledge that has yet to be fully rediscovered? Or was this simply an extraordinary accident of chemistry, climate, and craftsmanship? Some observers go even further. They ask whether the pillar's original location, now unknown, might have played a role in its preservation or purpose. Was it once housed in a sacred site with specific environmental conditions? Was the iron sourced from a unique deposit, unusual in its chemical composition? Could the pillar's remarkable qualities have held spiritual significance for the people who created it? These questions remain unanswered, and perhaps they always will. Yet one of the most fascinating aspects of the Iron Pillar mystery lies not in what we know, but in what we do not fully understand. Controlled laboratory experiments have attempted to replicate the corrosion-resistant effect, with varying degrees of success. Metallurgists can explain parts of the puzzle, but not the whole. Historians can trace the pillar's inscriptions, but cannot definitively map its journey. Archaeologists can date the iron, but cannot reconstruct the exact methods used to forge such a large, pure column without modern technology. And so the pillar stands at an intersection between scientific explanation and lingering uncertainty, a place where facts illuminate much, but not everything. The subtle elegance of its appearance belies the magnitude of its endurance. Touching its surface, one feels a cool, metallic smoothness, an unbroken continuity from the days of ancient India. Generations of hands have brushed across its surface, yet the metal beneath remains uncorroded, unchanged, and strangely timeless. What was the intention behind creating something meant to last so long? Did its makers understand just how extraordinary their achievement was? Or did they simply craft the best iron they could, unaware that their work would one day inspire awe in people from around the world? Perhaps that is the most compelling aspect of the Iron Pillar, the notion that a technologically complex artifact might have emerged from an age we often assume was less advanced than our own. It challenges our biases about the past and invites us to reconsider what ancient civilizations were truly capable of. As the sun sets over Delhi, casting long shadows across the Qutb complex, the pillar's dark silhouette stands quietly against the fading sky, a metal witness to 16 centuries of human history. A reminder that sometimes the most enduring mysteries are not buried beneath the earth, but hidden in plain sight. And so, the question lingers: how much of ancient knowledge still lies beyond our understanding? And what other secrets, like this pillar of forgotten iron mastery, might still be waiting to be discovered? From the enduring elegance of Delhi's Iron Pillar, we descend now, not into the sunlight, but into shadows beneath one of the most vibrant cities in Europe. Naples, Italy, a city of bustling streets, vibrant piazzas, and centuries of layered history. Yet beneath its lively surface lies another city entirely, an underground labyrinth carved in stone, shrouded in mystery, and largely hidden from the casual observer. These are the Roman tunnels of Naples, a network of passages that extend far beyond imagination, tracing the footsteps of civilizations long gone and inviting us into a world suspended between history and enigma. At first glance, the tunnels seem ordinary: narrow corridors, arched ceilings, and walls of volcanic tuff, illuminated only by the dim glow of artificial light for modern visitors. But as you venture deeper, a sense of dislocation takes hold. The air grows cooler, heavier, and carries the faint scent of damp stone and time itself. Every echo is magnified. Every drip of water sounds like a whispered reminder of centuries past. And all around you, the walls reveal traces of human endeavor. Hand-carved niches, channels, and chambers whose purposes are sometimes clear, often elusive. These tunnels are not a singular construction. They are a palimpsest of history, shaped over millennia. While many sections date to Roman times, archaeological evidence suggests that some passages were carved even earlier, possibly by Greeks or Etruscans who first settled the region. The Romans, renowned for their engineering, expanded the labyrinth, creating aqueducts, cisterns, escape routes, and underground roads beneath the city. In some areas, channels once carried water from distant springs, while other chambers may have served as storage or secret passageways for merchants and soldiers. Yet for all the documented utility, vast portions of the tunnels remain unexplained. Certain corridors end abruptly in solid rock, as though the builders intended to return, but never did. Others twist and branch in seemingly illogical directions, connecting sites that defy conventional urban planning. Why would some tunnels descend into chambers that appear to lead nowhere? Why carve vast halls beneath private villas, beneath markets, beneath streets that evolved centuries later? Mainstream archaeology posits pragmatic explanations. Tunnels provided defense against invaders, facilitated movement during sieges, and managed water for sanitation and fire prevention. But these answers, while compelling, do not account for every peculiarity. Some chambers are so large and intricately constructed that their function is difficult to deduce. Some walls bear inscriptions, graffiti, or symbols whose meanings are still debated. Even the structural choices, the precise angles of arches, the consistent width of passages, the alignment of chambers, hint at a sophisticated knowledge of engineering that seems to exceed what we might expect from purely utilitarian construction. Then there are the anomalies that defy easy interpretation. Archaeologists and explorers have discovered hidden alcoves containing unusual artifacts, ceramic vessels, coins from distant lands, and even traces of organic matter in locations that were presumably dry. In certain passages, acoustics behave strangely, amplifying sound in isolated pockets or creating reverberations that seem almost deliberate. Were these spaces designed with ritual in mind, perhaps as ceremonial areas or secret shrines? Or were they simply byproducts of engineering, later imbued with meaning by the people who navigated the labyrinth? Speculative theories have flourished over time, often inspired by the very nature of the tunnel's obscurity. Some suggest that the underground network may connect with other subterranean systems beyond Naples, forming a vast, interlinked infrastructure stretching beneath Campania. Could it be that the tunnels were not merely local solutions, but part of a grander design, an ancient underground artery for commerce, ritual, or clandestine activity? Others propose that certain sections served esoteric purposes, perhaps linked to mystery cults or secret societies that thrived during Rome's waning centuries. Geologists, too, have weighed in. The volcanic tuff into which much of the labyrinth is carved is soft and relatively easy to excavate, yet durable once exposed. This unique geology may explain the tunnel's survival over centuries of earthquakes, floods, and urban development. But even this does not answer every question. Why were tunnels sometimes carved haphazardly into weak rock, only to be abandoned when structural stability became an issue? Why are some passages perfectly aligned while others meander as if shaped by intuition rather than design? Modern exploration has illuminated much, but each new discovery seems to generate more questions than answers. Accessing remote sections often requires careful climbing or diving through flooded chambers, revealing inscriptions and artifacts that hint at unknown narratives, stories of daily life, religious devotion, and social organization that remain partially obscured. And yet, despite these advances, large swaths of the underground city are still closed, unmapped, or inaccessible, leaving room for mystery to endure. Walking through these tunnels, one cannot escape a profound sense of temporal dislocation. Above ground, Naples pulses with life. The scent of pizza, the chatter of markets, the rumble of traffic. Below ground, the city is quiet, almost suspended, a world frozen between construction and abandonment, between civilization and secrecy. The tunnels feel alive, yet they resist full understanding. They speak not through words, but through stone, echoing centuries of human ingenuity, ambition, and perhaps even hidden intentions. What was the full purpose of this subterranean network? How extensive did the builders intend it to be? And what remains undiscovered beneath the streets of modern Naples? Could the tunnels hold evidence of ancient practices, technologies, or societies that have otherwise vanished from the historical record? And if so, how much of our knowledge of this city, and of Roman engineering itself, remains hidden just below our feet? For now, the Roman tunnels of Naples stand as both achievement and enigma, a testament to human ingenuity, yet a reminder of the limits of our understanding. They invite exploration, patience, and wonder, asking us to move carefully, to observe quietly, and to question what we think we know about the ancient world. And as we emerge from the shadows back into sunlight, the labyrinth remains behind us, silent, dark, and still hiding its secrets, waiting for those willing to descend once more. From the shadowed labyrinth beneath Naples, where human hands carved corridors into stone and generations moved unseen through subterranean passages, we now journey far north, across continents and climates, to a landscape of dense forests, bogs, and ancient waterways. Here, in the remote Ural Mountains of Russia, lies a discovery that challenges our understanding of early human artistry and belief, a wooden monument that has survived nearly 12,000 years. The Shigir Idol. At first sight, the idol is imposing yet strangely elegant. Carved from larch, it stands over 5 meters tall, though its fragments suggest it may once have been even larger. Its surface is etched with a labyrinth of geometric patterns, zigzags, spirals, and deeply incised faces, giving it the appearance of a figure both abstract and strangely animate. Some interpret these faces as masks, others as deities, or perhaps even as symbolic representations of ancestral spirits. The wood itself, remarkably preserved in a peat bog, bears testimony not only to the skill of its makers, but to an environment that has acted as a natural time capsule, holding secrets that would have otherwise decayed into oblivion. The Shigir Idol was discovered in 1890 during peat mining, hidden beneath layers of earth, water, and centuries of organic decay. Radiocarbon dating places its creation at approximately 10,000 BCE, making it by far the oldest known monumental wooden sculpture in the world. This dating pushes the artifact back into a time long before the advent of urban centers, before the wheel, and even before many of the technological developments often associated with complex societies. Who carved it, and why? These questions strike at the core of what we understand about Mesolithic humans in northern Eurasia. The carvings themselves are both precise and enigmatic. Parallel lines and repeated motifs suggest intentionality, a language or code that we no longer comprehend. Faces, often depicted as pairs of eyes without mouths, peer out from the surface, a silent multitude observing us across millennia. Some researchers propose that the figures represented protective spirits, territorial markers, or guides for the afterlife. Others suggest that the idol's patterns may encode cosmological knowledge, astronomical observation, or oral traditions, translated into a visual, enduring form. Yet the Shigir Idol is more than the sum of its symbols. Its sheer scale raises questions about the society that created it. To carve, transport, and erect such a monument required not only technical skill, but coordinated effort and planning. These were not scattered hunter-gatherers acting individually. There must have been a community capable of sustaining such labor over an extended period, and yet no contemporary settlements have been definitively linked to the idol, leaving its social context shrouded in mystery. The environment in which it was created adds another layer of intrigue. Northern Eurasia, at the end of the last ice age, was a harsh, dynamic landscape. Dense forests, bogs, and rivers dominated, and climate fluctuations forced human populations to adapt continually. To invest so much labor into a monument that was not utilitarian, neither food storage nor shelter, suggests a purpose deeply symbolic, perhaps sacred. It raises questions about the spiritual life of these communities. What beliefs, fears, and hopes drove them to carve faces into living wood, to shape symbols whose meaning we may never fully recover? Mainstream archaeological interpretations favor ritualistic or spiritual explanations, yet some aspects remain difficult to reconcile. Why the geometric patterns, repeated with apparent regularity but without an obvious narrative? Could these have been a form of proto-writing or a mnemonic device for oral histories? Why was the monument placed in a peat bog, a challenging environment for construction, rather than on elevated, more visible ground? Was the bog itself considered sacred, a liminal space between worlds, or was its location purely practical, chosen for preservation? Speculative theories abound. Some researchers suggest that the idol could encode knowledge of celestial cycles, serving as a prehistoric calendar or astronomical marker. Others see it as a symbol of collective identity, a focal point for rituals that defined and united early Mesolithic communities. A few fringe interpretations even entertain the idea of shamanic or visionary purposes, suggesting the idol functioned as a medium for altered states of consciousness or communication with unseen forces. While these ideas cannot be proven, they reflect the depth of curiosity the idol inspires. Despite being over 10,000 years old, the Shigir Idol's presence is immediate and almost confrontational. Its faces seem to watch. Its symbols demand contemplation. Touching the wood, softened by centuries but resilient against decay, one senses a connection not only to a distant past, but to the intentions, fears, and creativity of humans, whose voices survive only in these enigmatic carvings. It is a monument that reminds us that art, belief, and symbolism long predate cities, writing, and states. And yet, much about the idol remains unresolved. What stories were etched into its surface? How did its creators transport and raise a structure of such height? Why were some elements repeated, others fragmented? And crucially, what else lies hidden in the bogs and forests of Siberia? Artifacts, monuments, or signs of advanced symbolic thought that could rewrite our understanding of early human societies. The Shigir Idol invites reflection on the limits of our knowledge and the depth of human ingenuity. It challenges assumptions about the simplicity of Mesolithic life, offering a glimpse of complexity, belief, and artistry that continues to inspire awe. Each line, each eye, each geometric motif is a bridge across time, connecting us to a consciousness that is at once familiar and profoundly alien. And so, as we leave the dark, boggy depths of the Ural forests behind, the idol remains. A silent witness to a vanished world, a record of human expression older than almost anything else known, and a puzzle that continues to defy full explanation. What other monuments, crafted with purpose and vision, lie buried in forgotten landscapes, awaiting discovery? And what can they tell us about the origins of human culture, creativity, and the desire to leave a mark upon the world? From the frozen bogs of the Ural forests, where the Shigir Idol stands as a silent sentinel of human creativity, we now travel south across continents and climates to the sun-drenched shores of Morocco. Perched above the winding banks of the Lixus River lies Lixus, an ancient city whose ruins whisper of civilizations long past, yet remain shrouded in mystery. Here, among crumbling walls, partially excavated temples, and scattered fragments of stone, the past lingers in a way that feels alive, present, yet elusive, offering glimpses of grandeur we may never fully comprehend. At first glance, the site is striking in its topography. Terraces descend toward the river, and the ruins stretch across uneven terrain, blending seamlessly with the surrounding hills. Weathered stone blocks mark the outlines of structures whose precise function remains uncertain: dwellings, fortifications, or sacred spaces. Archaeologists have identified sections as public buildings, while others appear to have been residential quarters. Yet much of the city is unexcavated, leaving vast stretches unexplored. Even from the visible areas, a sense of scale emerges. Lixus was no small settlement. It was a city that once thrived at a crossroads of trade, culture, and perhaps spiritual practice. The historical record places Lixus within the sphere of Phoenician influence, dating back to at least the first millennium BCE, and later under Carthaginian and Roman control. Classical writers speak of Lixus as a center of trade, mythology, and agriculture. It was said to be a city of wealth, particularly in its cultivation of exotic plants and perhaps even early forms of citrus orchards, a legacy that survives to this day in the fertile river valleys below. Yet, archaeological evidence paints a more complex, fragmented picture. Walls built and rebuilt, temples erected, and streets partially laid, sometimes abruptly ending, as if construction was paused or redirected. One of the most captivating mysteries of Lixus is the city's mythic connection. According to legend, it was here that Hercules is said to have passed during his journey to capture the golden apples of the Hesperides. Some suggest that the ruins may preserve elements of this myth in architectural form, altars, enclosures, and artifacts aligned in ways that hint at ritual observances. Could the city have been a ceremonial hub as well as a center of trade? The evidence is tantalizing but inconclusive, leaving us to wonder what role myth and memory played in shaping the cityscape. Excavations have revealed structures that challenge simple interpretation. For example, massive cisterns, partially carved into the bedrock, indicate advanced water management. But some chambers appear to have no clear functional purpose. Were they ritual spaces, storage for sacred items, or perhaps observation points for astronomical events? The precision of some masonry with stone blocks fitted together without mortar points to technical sophistication that raises questions about the methods employed and the knowledge required to sustain such construction. Artifacts unearthed at Lixus further deepen the mystery. Pottery, figurines, coins, and inscriptions suggest cultural exchange with distant Mediterranean societies. Yet certain items defy easy classification. Fragments with symbols that do not clearly align with known alphabets, objects with forms not found elsewhere, and construction methods that differ subtly from contemporaneous sites. How much of the city's function, culture, or belief system is hidden in these artifacts, awaiting interpretation or misinterpretation? Speculative theories arise naturally in such a context. Some propose that Lixus may have been a repository of esoteric knowledge, a city designed to blend commerce, ritual, and astronomical observation into a single, harmonious environment. Others suggest that unexcavated areas may conceal tombs, treasures, or evidence of a civilization whose influence extended far beyond what classical sources recorded. Could there have been aspects of Lixus so sophisticated, so integrated with landscape and myth, that they are now lost to time? And if so, how many more clues remain buried beneath centuries of sediment, vegetation, and human activity? The city's layout itself is enigmatic. Streets and terraces follow patterns that seem deliberate, yet irregular. Some thoroughfares lead toward the river, perhaps for trade, while others ascend into hills that would have been difficult to inhabit. Were these decisions dictated by practical considerations, or did they reflect spiritual, symbolic, or astronomical principles? And what of the abandoned or partially excavated areas, where foundations hint at buildings that were never completed? Could these represent abrupt changes in political power, economic decline, or something more profound, perhaps tied to religious or ceremonial shifts? Walking among the ruins, one is struck by a sense of both scale and intimacy. The city speaks of human ambition, ingenuity, and connection to the natural world. Yet it also maintains an air of quiet secrecy. Each wall, each terrace, each fragment of pottery invites us to imagine life as it might have been. Markets bustling with trade, temples echoing with chants, citizens negotiating both survival and ritual. And yet, much remains unknowable. For every artifact discovered, countless others may lie hidden. For every completed excavation, there are acres of untouched earth, waiting for the next generation of explorers, historians, or perhaps chance encounters that reveal another layer of the city's story. The Lixus ruins of Morocco remind us that history is rarely linear or fully recorded. Cities rise, flourish, and fade. Myths intertwine with reality. Human ambition leaves traces that can inspire, perplex, and ultimately confound. They are a testament to the resilience and complexity of early societies and a silent challenge to modern observers. How much do we truly understand about the civilizations that shaped our world, and how many secrets remain just beneath the surface? As the sun sets over the Lixus River, casting long shadows across the terraces and crumbling walls, the ruins seem to watch us, holding their stories in silence. What remains undiscovered at Lixus may well redefine our understanding of ancient trade, culture, and belief. And as we leave, the questions linger. How did this city integrate myth, commerce, and daily life in ways we may never fully comprehend? And what treasures, physical, cultural, or intellectual, still lie hidden, waiting to be brought to light? From the sun-drenched terraces of Lixus, where ancient walls whisper stories of trade, myth, and human ambition, we now move northeast, across the Levant, to the rolling hills and dense forests of northern Jordan. Here lies a site that, at first glance, appears serene, almost pastoral, a landscape of undulating hills, olive groves, and stone terraces. Yet hidden within this seemingly ordinary terrain are formations that defy simple explanation, the Ajloun mysterious circles. Scattered across the countryside, these enigmatic rings etched into the earth hint at human activity long forgotten, yet their purpose, origin, and meaning remain elusive, stirring curiosity and speculation in equal measure. The circles themselves are deceptively simple in design. Viewed from the ground, they appear as low, irregular stone embankments, circular in shape, often enclosing an area several meters across. From above, their geometry becomes apparent, perfectly round or subtly elliptical, sometimes interconnected in patterns that suggest intention beyond mere coincidence. The stones are weathered, their edges softened by centuries of exposure, yet the precision of their arrangement hints at a deliberate plan. Why were they constructed here, in this terrain, and by whom? Archaeologists studying the Ajloun circles have proposed a variety of explanations. Some suggest they were ancient agricultural installations, stone circles intended to protect crops, corral livestock, or manage water flow in a region prone to variable rainfall. Others speculate that they may have served ritual or ceremonial purposes, perhaps as sacred spaces for seasonal rites, astronomical observations, or social gatherings. Yet despite these plausible explanations, no definitive evidence confirms their use. Unlike larger, better documented sites, the circles yield few artifacts, inscriptions, or remnants of permanent habitation, leaving their function largely a mystery. Adding to the intrigue is their apparent antiquity. Preliminary surveys indicate that some of the circles could date back thousands of years, potentially to the Bronze Age or even earlier. If so, they predate many of the more prominent civilizations in the region, suggesting a human presence capable of organized construction long before the rise of urban centers or formalized state societies. Who were the people who built these formations? What knowledge guided their construction? And what purpose did these circles serve in their daily lives or spiritual practices? Some formations seem isolated, standing alone atop hills or in valleys, while others cluster together, forming loose networks across the landscape. In certain cases, the spacing and orientation of the circles suggest alignment with natural features or celestial bodies. Could they have functioned as primitive observatories, mapping the sun, moon, or stars? Or are such alignments coincidental, the result of topography and convenience? Without direct evidence, each interpretation remains speculative, yet the patterns provoke questions that continue to puzzle researchers. Exploration of the Ajloun circles is complicated by their location. The terrain is rugged, with thick underbrush, uneven stone terraces, and occasional wildlife. Walking among the circles, one becomes acutely aware of the passage of time, the slow erosion of stone, the growth of vegetation, the silence that blankets the hills. It is a quiet, contemplative space, where the absence of obvious human activity is as striking as the presence of the formations themselves. How many circles remain undiscovered in the hills, hidden beneath layers of soil, forest, or human alteration? Speculative theories naturally arise in such a context. Some researchers propose that the circles may have marked territorial boundaries, acting as visual signals or symbols of social organization. Others consider the possibility of ritual significance, a sacred geometry employed to channel spiritual energy, commemorate celestial events, or honor ancestors. Fringe hypotheses even suggest that the circles could represent knowledge lost to history, astronomical calendars, proto-writing systems, or a form of symbolic communication whose meaning we no longer recognize. While these ideas cannot be proven, they underscore the depth of mystery the site presents. Comparisons with other ancient stone circles around the world, from the British Isles to Central Asia, offer tantalizing parallels. Could similar human motivations, such as ritual practice, astronomical observation, or social cohesion, have inspired these constructions across widely separated cultures? Or are we imposing patterns and assumptions on a culture whose logic and purpose remain inaccessible to us? The Ajloun circles resist definitive classification, reminding us of the limits of interpretation when physical evidence is sparse and context is lost. Walking among the formations, one is struck not only by their construction, but by their enduring presence. Each circle seems to mark a moment frozen in time, a decision made by humans long gone, an act of organization, labor, and perhaps devotion. Yet the silence is profound. No inscriptions explain their purpose, no artifacts suggest daily activity, and still, the rings endure, carved into the landscape, waiting patiently for understanding. The Ajloun mysterious circles are more than archaeological curiosities. They are invitations to wonder. They speak to a human desire to shape the environment, to impose order, and perhaps to connect with forces beyond the material world. They challenge us to consider the ingenuity, beliefs, and priorities of people who lived thousands of years ago in ways that defy our expectations. And as the sun dips behind the hills, casting long shadows across these silent stone rings, the questions remain. Why were these circles created? How many more lie hidden, undiscovered beneath soil and brush? And what knowledge, practice, or belief do they encode that has vanished from our historical memory? The Ajloun circles endure as a quiet, enigmatic presence, a reminder that even in seemingly ordinary landscapes, mysteries of the past await discovery, interpretation, and reflection. From the quiet stone circles of northern Jordan, where human hands once etched enigmatic rings into hillsides, our journey now carries us northeast across continents and time to the remote plains of southern Russia. Here, across the steppe and the forested expanses near the Don and Volga rivers, lie formations that stretch across the land on a monumental scale, the giant geoglyphs of Russia. Unlike the small, intimate patterns of Ajloun, these geoglyphs are visible only from above, their full dimensions lost to the casual observer. To stand at ground level is to glimpse fragments of lines, arcs, and terraces carved into earth and stone, a vast choreography of shapes whose purpose and origin remain a tantalizing mystery. The geoglyphs are striking in both size and precision. Some extend for hundreds of meters, composed of trenches, embankments, and carefully arranged stones. The designs vary: triangles, squares, elongated paths, and intersecting lines. But their sheer scale suggests deliberate planning, careful execution, and knowledge of the landscape that goes far beyond what might be expected of pre-modern societies. In places, multiple geoglyphs cluster together, forming patterns whose logic is difficult to discern, evoking questions about both their creators and their intentions. Archaeologists have studied these formations for decades, attempting to uncover their age, purpose, and cultural context. Preliminary evidence indicates that some date back several millennia, potentially to the Bronze Age or even earlier. Yet dating is challenging, as the structures are primarily earthworks, subject to erosion and disturbance over centuries. Unlike conventional archaeological sites, they yield few artifacts or direct evidence of habitation, leaving interpretation largely dependent on form, scale, and comparison with other known ancient constructions. Mainstream theories suggest pragmatic purposes. Some researchers propose that the geoglyphs functioned as agricultural markers, boundary indicators, or pathways aligned to facilitate movement across difficult terrain. Others speculate that certain designs may have had a ritual or ceremonial significance, perhaps marking sacred sites, seasonal events, or cosmological alignments. The precision of some lines, however, suggests a level of coordination and observation that raises deeper questions. How could a society lacking aerial perspective produce such large-scale, geometrically coherent formations? The mystery deepens when considering the environmental context. The Russian steppe is both vast and unforgiving, subject to seasonal flooding, extreme temperatures, and shifting soils. Constructing and maintaining these geoglyphs would have required sustained effort, careful planning, and a social organization capable of coordinating labor over extended periods. Who were these people, and what motivated them to commit such energy to shapes that could only be fully appreciated from above, a vantage point they could not have achieved? Speculative theories have naturally emerged to address these enigmas. Some suggest that the geoglyphs may represent early astronomical or calendrical systems, mapping the sun, moon, or stars across the seasons. Others propose that they could encode religious or symbolic information, serving as a landscape-scale language intended for deities, spirits, or even future generations. A few fringe hypotheses speculate on even more extraordinary possibilities, imagining lost technologies or forms of observation that allowed their creators a perspective from which such massive designs could be conceived. While these ideas cannot be verified, they underscore the deep fascination these formations inspire. The geoglyphs' forms also invite comparison with other large-scale constructions around the world, like the Nazca Lines in Peru or the Uffington White Horse in England. They challenge our assumptions about the cognitive and technical capacities of ancient peoples. Did disparate cultures independently arrive at similar solutions for expressing ideology, astronomy, or social cohesion across landscapes? Or do these geoglyphs represent a unique response to local conditions, symbolic needs, or spiritual imperatives that are now lost to history? Exploration of the Russian geoglyphs is hindered by their sheer scale and the remoteness of their locations. Many formations are only fully visible through aerial surveys or satellite imagery, making on-the-ground study difficult. Even when accessible, erosion, modern land use, and environmental change obscure details, leaving questions unanswered. Walking across the steppe, one can trace fragments of trenches, observe subtle mounds of earth, and imagine the labor required to move soil and stone with primitive tools. Yet the full meaning remains out of reach, visible only from a perspective lost to the past. And yet, the geoglyphs retain an almost hypnotic presence. Each line, each angle, each shape suggests intention, careful thought, and aesthetic sensibility. They speak of a desire to shape the landscape itself, to communicate across time and space, and to leave an enduring mark. Unlike the Ajloun circles, which engage the viewer at close range, these geoglyphs demand imagination, inviting us to reconstruct meaning from fragments, perspective from ground-level observation, and purpose from subtle traces. The giant geoglyphs of Russia compel reflection on the nature of human ambition and perception. They challenge us to reconsider what ancient societies could envision, plan, and execute, even without the technologies we take for granted. They hint at knowledge, organization, and intention that remain largely inaccessible to modern inquiry, yet are preserved in the patterns etched into the earth. As sunlight glances across the steppe, casting shadows along the trenches and embankments, the geoglyphs remain largely silent, their creators long gone, their purpose still a subject of speculation. What stories, rituals, or knowledge do these immense forms encode? How many more lie hidden in the remote plains, waiting to be discovered? And if we could fully comprehend their design, what might it reveal about the minds, societies, and ambitions of those who shaped these colossal markings? The giant geoglyphs of Russia endure as monumental enigmas, a reminder that even when human presence is long vanished, the traces we leave on the earth can transcend time, scale, and understanding. They invite us not only to explore but to wonder, to imagine, and to confront the limits of our knowledge of the ancient world. From the sweeping plains of southern Russia, where monumental geoglyphs carve silent lines into the landscape, we now turn to the cradle of civilization, the fertile plains of Mesopotamia between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Here, in the ancient cities of Sumer, humans first began to organize themselves into structured societies, leaving behind artifacts that continue to puzzle and fascinate archaeologists today. Among the most intriguing of these objects are the Sumerian cylinder seals, small, intricately carved cylinders that, despite their size, convey a complexity and artistry that remains astonishing even by modern standards. At first glance, a cylinder seal is deceptively simple. Rolled across soft clay, it leaves behind a continuous impression, a miniature narrative in relief, often no larger than a thumb. Yet within this tiny expanse, artisans captured myth, ritual, commerce, and power. Gods stride across the scene, humans bow, animals roam, and symbols interweave in patterns that suggest both storytelling and symbolism. Each seal is unique, revealing the individual creativity of its maker while also reflecting broader cultural and religious conventions. The oldest of these seals date back to the 4th millennium BCE, making them among the earliest forms of personal identification and administrative tool in human history. They functioned as signatures, markers of authority, and proof of transactions, a combination of practical and symbolic utility. Yet despite their apparent mundane function, many seals display scenes and symbols that resist clear interpretation. Some depict deities in ways not found in contemporary texts. Others feature animals, hybrid creatures, or abstract motifs whose meanings remain obscure. These objects were not merely decorative, they were tools, imbued with social and ritual significance. For the elite, possessing a seal was a mark of identity and authority. For merchants, it validated trade agreements, protected property, and signaled legitimacy. Yet the seals also seemed to function as more than administrative instruments. Were they protective talismans, encoding spiritual or mystical knowledge? Did their designs hold messages intended only for those educated in certain symbolic languages? And how much of their meaning has been lost to time, leaving us with only tantalizing fragments? The craftsmanship of cylinder seals is extraordinary. Carved in materials ranging from limestone to obsidian, from lapis lazuli to clay, they reveal a mastery of technique and an understanding of narrative compression. The artists worked with meticulous precision, anticipating how the image would unroll across clay. Faces, gestures, and animals are rendered in miniature yet remain expressive, readable, and coherent. The technical expertise raises questions about the training, knowledge, and perhaps even ritual practices required to produce such work. Were certain artisans specially trained or initiated into secret knowledge, preserving traditions that only a few could understand fully? The symbolism itself is enigmatic. Many seals depict mythological scenes, but the choice of figures, their interactions, and their placement remain puzzling. Some show figures that appear human but are adorned with features associated with gods or animals, blurring the line between mortal and divine. Others depict animals in unusual combinations or arrangements that may signify status, cosmology, or ritual practice. Could these images have encoded sacred knowledge, an early form of storytelling, or even proto-writing? Or are they primarily symbolic, a language we are no longer fluent in, leaving their meaning tantalizingly out of reach? Speculative theories have long swirled around these small artifacts. Some researchers suggest that certain seals could have served as amulets, protecting their owners from spiritual harm or invoking divine favor. Others posit that the scenes might map celestial or astrological knowledge, embedding cosmic understanding into everyday objects. A few fringe hypotheses suggest that the seals could encode lost technologies, spiritual practices, or early philosophical concepts, ideas so sophisticated that their full significance eludes modern interpretation. While such theories remain unproven, they underscore the enduring fascination the seals inspire. The seals also offer glimpses into social and political life. Scenes of rulers, worshippers, and mythic creatures hint at hierarchies, religious practices, and cultural values. Yet these glimpses are incomplete. For every scene that seems familiar, another remains obscure, challenging assumptions about Sumerian society. Were these seals simply reflections of contemporary life, or did they serve as aspirational or idealized visions, guiding behavior, reinforcing beliefs, or maintaining social cohesion? The ambiguity preserves the mystery, reminding us that much about these societies is still unknown. Holding or observing a cylinder seal, one is struck by its duality: miniature yet monumental, practical yet profound, personal yet reflective of a culture's collective imagination. They are intimate objects, yet they connect us to a civilization that laid the foundations for writing, governance, and complex society. They remind us that even small objects can carry vast significance, encapsulating human experience, creativity, and belief across millennia. And yet, despite centuries of study, the Sumerian cylinder seals continue to defy complete understanding. What stories are fully encoded within these tiny impressions? How much symbolic or ritual knowledge has been lost to time? And what might these artifacts reveal about the interplay of art, power, and belief in one of the earliest known civilizations? Each seal is a puzzle, a fragment of a narrative that stretches across time, inviting us to peer into a world both alien and surprisingly familiar, and to wonder what else remains hidden in the depths of Mesopotamia's ancient past. From the intricate impressions of Sumerian cylinder seals, where tiny carvings reveal the complexities of an ancient civilization, we now travel thousands of miles southwest, across continents and oceans, to the arid plains of southern Peru. Here, stretching across the desert floor between the Andes and the Pacific coast, lies a landscape transformed by human hands in ways that continue to astonish and confound. The Nazca Lines. Viewed from the ground, the terrain appears unremarkable, flat, dry, and scattered with stones. Yet from above, a panorama of enormous figures, straight lines, spirals, and geometric patterns emerges, some stretching for hundreds of meters, forming a canvas whose scale and precision beg explanation. The Nazca Lines are among the most extraordinary examples of landscape art in human history. Over 1,500 figures have been documented, ranging from simple lines to complex depictions of animals, plants, and humanoid shapes. A hummingbird stretches its wings across nearly 100 meters of desert. A spider seems to crawl in perfect proportion. A monkey curls its tail in a spiral that defies ordinary measurement. The precision is striking. Lines run straight for kilometers, curves are fluid, and angles intersect with exacting care. How could a society without modern surveying tools achieve such monumental accuracy, especially when most of the figures are only fully comprehensible from an aerial perspective? Archaeologists date the earliest lines to between 500 BCE and 500 CE, a period when the Nazca culture flourished in the region. The desert's dryness preserved the designs almost perfectly, keeping them visible for centuries. The lines were created by removing the reddish-brown iron oxide-coated stones that cover the surface, revealing the lighter soil beneath. This simple yet labor-intensive technique produced an effect that has endured for over a millennium, resisting wind, rain, and erosion. But the method alone does not explain the scale, arrangement, or purpose of these enigmatic geoglyphs. Mainstream interpretations have long suggested that the Nazca Lines served ritualistic or religious functions. Some researchers propose that the lines were pathways for ceremonial processions, leading participants across sacred spaces or toward water sources, essential in such an arid environment. Others suggest astronomical alignment, claiming that certain lines may correlate with solstices, star positions, or planetary cycles. Yet these theories, while plausible, cannot account for the sheer variety and scale of the figures, nor the enormous effort required to construct them with such precision. Some of the Nazca Lines' most mysterious aspects lie in their design and placement. Figures often span several kilometers, yet lack any central viewpoint from which they could be appreciated by the culture that created them. Were these lines intended for the gods to view from above? Or were they part of ritual practices that emphasized participation rather than observation? Why are some figures isolated, while others cluster together in seemingly deliberate sequences? And how did the Nazca people plan, measure, and execute such enormous works without aerial perspective, compasses, or modern geometry? Speculative theories abound, reflecting the profound mystery the lines inspire. Some suggest that they served as a symbolic map of water sources or underground aquifers, encoding practical knowledge in a form that also conveyed ritual significance. Others propose more esoteric explanations, envisioning the figures as markers for communication with celestial beings, guides for spiritual journeys, or manifestations of a cosmological worldview now lost to history. Fringe hypotheses, though unverified, continue to capture the imagination, positing contact with advanced civilizations or knowledge of flight as a reason for their scale and precision. While such ideas remain outside mainstream archaeology, they underscore the deep fascination and unanswered questions these geoglyphs evoke. The labor behind the lines also raises questions about organization and social structure. Constructing a single straight line or large figure required careful planning, teamwork, and sustained effort. How many people were involved? How long did it take to execute the more elaborate figures? Were these efforts communal, ritualistic, or enforced by social hierarchy? Each possibility hints at a society far more sophisticated in coordination, labor management, and cultural investment than one might assume from a desert civilization surviving in harsh conditions. Walking the desert floor today, one can trace the faint impressions of lines that stretch endlessly across the landscape. Stones crunch underfoot, the wind shifts loose sand, and the silence of the desert underscores the enormity of human ambition etched into the earth. It is a humbling experience, connecting us to a culture that expressed belief, power, and artistry on a scale that continues to challenge comprehension. The lines are at once intimate and vast, tangible underfoot, yet fully realized only from the sky. The Nazca Lines endure as a testament to human ingenuity and imagination. They are not merely art, they are a dialogue across time, a message from a people whose daily lives, rituals, and spiritual world we can only partially reconstruct. Each figure, line, and spiral invites reflection. What inspired their creation? How did the Nazca plan and execute such extraordinary works? And what might remain hidden, buried under centuries of sand, waiting to reveal further secrets of this remarkable civilization? As the sun rises over the Peruvian desert, casting long shadows across the geoglyphs, the lines remain both visible and inscrutable, monumental, yet mysterious. They challenge our understanding of ancient human capability, vision, and intention. And as we leave the plains of Nazca behind, we are reminded that the past is not only a record of what is known, but also a landscape of unanswered questions. Questions that continue to beckon, to intrigue, and to invite wonder. From the vast, sun-baked plains of southern Peru, where the Nazca Lines stretch across the desert like messages to the sky, we now journey across oceans and continents to the quiet province of Zhejiang in eastern China. Here, nestled beneath rolling hills and verdant farmland, lies one of the most perplexing and enigmatic subterranean complexes ever discovered, the Longyou Caves. Unlike natural caverns formed by the slow passage of water through stone, these caves are entirely man-made, hewn from solid siltstone with astonishing precision, their scale and craftsmanship hinting at a lost chapter of human engineering that challenges conventional history. Approaching the site, one is immediately struck by its scale. The cave's ceilings soar up to 30 meters, their chambers stretching over hundreds of square meters. Walls are lined with parallel chisel marks, evenly spaced and meticulously executed, creating a rhythmic pattern that is as hypnotic as it is mysterious. Each cave appears to have been carved with careful planning, yet no historical records or local legends account for their creation. How and why were these enormous chambers excavated by hands wielding simple tools in a time before mechanized equipment? Discovered in 1992 by local farmers digging ponds, the Longyou Caves comprise at least 20 interconnected caverns, though the full extent may be far greater. The chambers are remarkably consistent in design. Vast rectangular rooms supported by columns, with floors smoothed to near perfection and walls adorned with the distinctive parallel grooves. Some chambers are filled with water, while others remain dry, their stone surfaces echoing the faintest footsteps. The uniformity and scale suggest extraordinary knowledge of structural engineering and spatial planning, skills that surpass what we might expect from undocumented cultures of ancient China. Dating the caves has proven difficult. No inscriptions, artifacts, or datable organic materials have been found within, leaving their age largely a matter of speculation. Some researchers propose they may date back over 2,000 years, while others argue for a more recent origin, perhaps within the last millennium. Yet regardless of their exact age, the precision and labor required to carve such immense spaces from solid stone are staggering. How could a society lacking cranes, pulleys, or advanced machinery remove hundreds of thousands of tons of rock with such uniformity and planning? The purpose of the caves remains equally elusive. Mainstream hypotheses suggest they may have functioned as storage facilities, communal spaces, or places of ritual or ceremonial significance. Yet the absence of artifacts, inscriptions, or clear utilitarian markers challenges these explanations. Were these chambers designed for a function now lost to history, or were they symbolic, constructed to project power, awe, or spiritual meaning? The emptiness of the spaces only deepens the mystery, leaving each visitor to confront the scale and silence of the caves in quiet contemplation. The engineering itself is remarkable. The parallel grooves etched into the walls are precise, evenly spaced, and meticulously aligned, a feature that seems decorative yet may have served structural or symbolic purposes. The ceilings, often carved from single rock slabs, remain intact despite centuries of seismic activity, suggesting a deep understanding of load distribution and rock stability. How did the architects of the Longyou Caves conceptualize and execute such ambitious projects without any surviving blueprint, reference, or written record? Speculative theories have naturally emerged in response to the cave's mystery. Some suggest they may have been hidden refuges, secret ceremonial halls, or even a repository for knowledge now lost. Others propose more extraordinary ideas, envisioning them as evidence of advanced prehistoric engineering, perhaps the work of a forgotten civilization whose technical achievements were never recorded. While such hypotheses remain unverified, they underscore the profound fascination the caves inspire and the enduring questions they pose about human ingenuity. The Longyou Caves also challenge our understanding of cultural memory. How could such monumental labor, stone by stone, room by room, vanish from historical records, leaving no trace in oral traditions, chronicles, or inscriptions? The silence of the caves is profound, a stark contrast to their monumental presence. Each chamber is both imposing and intimate, a space that conveys effort, intent, and mystery without uttering a single word. Walking through the largest chambers, one can almost hear the echoes of ancient labor, the rhythm of chisels striking stone, the coordination of hands and minds focused on a singular purpose. Yet these echoes are only imagined. The caves remain empty, their creators long gone, their intentions obscured. The scale, precision, and deliberate emptiness invite reflection. What motivated such extraordinary effort, and why has history forgotten it? The Longyou Caves endure as both a technical marvel and a profound enigma. They invite us to reconsider assumptions about ancient engineering, social organization, and the capacities of undocumented civilizations. They remind us that the past is not only a story preserved in texts and artifacts, but also a landscape of mystery, silence, and human endeavor that challenges comprehension. And as the sunlight filters through the entrances, casting shadows across smooth stone floors and chiseled walls, one cannot help but wonder, how many more chambers lie undiscovered beneath the hills? What knowledge, rituals, or purposes have been lost to time, leaving only the echoes of labor and the patterns of stone? The Longyou Caves remain silent, yet compelling witnesses to a history that is both monumental and elusive, inviting each visitor to ponder the depth of human creativity and the mysteries that continue to elude explanation. From the subterranean enigma of the Longyou Caves in eastern China, where massive chambers carved from solid stone defy explanation, we now ascend to the highlands of Peru, above the city of Cusco, where another remarkable feat of stonework challenges our understanding of ancient engineering and human ambition. Here lies Sacsayhuaman, a fortress and ceremonial complex perched atop a hill overlooking the valley below, whose walls continue to astonish visitors and scholars alike with their scale, precision, and enduring mystery. At first glance, the walls seem to defy the imagination. Enormous polygonal stones, some weighing over 100 tons, are fitted together with astonishing precision. No mortar binds them, yet the stones interlock so tightly that even a single sheet of paper cannot be slipped between many of the joints. The irregular shapes of the stones create a mosaic-like pattern, yet the alignment is flawless, and the surface appears to have been carefully finished. From a distance, the walls rise in sweeping terraces, zigzagging along the hilltop, forming both a formidable fortification and a striking visual statement of power and skill. Sacsayhuaman is thought to have been constructed by the Inca civilization during the 15th century, yet its origins and techniques continue to provoke debate. How did the Inca move such massive stones from quarries located miles away, raise them into place, and fit them together with such meticulous precision, all without modern cranes, pulleys, or cement? The answers remain elusive, despite decades of study, experimentation, and exploration by engineers, archaeologists, and historians. Some researchers suggest that the wall's strength and stability were achieved through a combination of careful stone selection, trial and error fitting, and ingenious engineering that allowed the structures to withstand earthquakes. Indeed, the region is highly seismic, yet the walls have survived centuries of tremors that have toppled less well-constructed buildings. Could the Inca have possessed an intuitive understanding of seismic engineering, knowledge passed down through generations but never recorded in writing? Or is there a deeper secret to their construction, one that eludes even our most sophisticated modern analysis? The scale and craftsmanship of the walls suggest more than mere defensive utility. Certain stones are carved to fit specific angles, creating patterns that align with the surrounding terrain, while others seem deliberately oriented toward solar or celestial events. Could these walls have served a ceremonial purpose as well, acting as stages for ritual observances, astronomical tracking, or religious symbolism? Some speculate that the terraces may have amplified sound during ceremonies or processions, transforming the space into an acoustically charged environment designed to awe and inspire. Sacsayhuaman is not just a single wall or structure. It is a complex terraces, gates, and additional walls stretch across the hilltop, forming a labyrinthine landscape of stone that is both functional and monumental. Within this maze, the interplay of light and shadow throughout the day highlights the contours of the massive blocks, creating a dynamic visual experience. The walls themselves seem to possess a presence, a silent testimony to the ingenuity and ambition of their builders. Despite extensive study, many aspects of Sacsayhuaman remain unexplained. The precision with which the stones fit together, the transportation and placement of colossal monoliths, and the apparent alignment with natural and celestial features raise questions about the tools, techniques, and knowledge possessed by the Inca. Were there lost methods of leverage, rope systems, or planning strategies that allowed for feats we struggle to replicate today? Or were these walls the culmination of centuries of trial, tradition, and meticulous observation passed down through generations? Speculative theories abound, reflecting the awe these walls inspire. Some propose that the stones were carved and transported using technologies or techniques that have been lost over time, perhaps involving ingenious mechanical knowledge or ritual practices intertwined with construction. Others suggest more metaphysical interpretations, envisioning the walls as manifestations of spiritual or cosmic principles, a deliberate alignment of human effort with the sacred landscape. While these hypotheses remain unproven, they underscore the profound fascination and the sense of wonder that Sacsayhuaman evokes. Walking along the terraces today, one is struck not only by the physical presence of the walls, but by the meticulous attention to detail. Each stone seems deliberate, as if chosen and placed with both practical and symbolic intent. The gaps between stones are imperceptible. The patterns suggest rhythm, harmony, and understanding of geometry beyond what one might expect from a purely empirical approach. The fortress conveys a dual narrative of human power and ingenuity, and of mystery that has survived the passage of centuries. Sacsayhuaman challenges our assumptions about ancient civilizations. It reminds us that human societies were capable of feats that are at once technical and artistic, functional and symbolic. The walls endure as both a defensive marvel and a cultural statement, speaking to a society that sought to harmonize its built environment with the landscape, the cosmos, and their own societal ambitions. And yet, for all its grandeur and apparent clarity, Sacsayhuaman remains partly enigmatic. How precisely were the stones quarried, transported, and positioned with such accuracy? What symbolic or astronomical purposes might have guided the placement of certain stones? And what knowledge, lost to time, enabled the Inca to conceive and execute such an extraordinary architectural achievement? As the sunlight shifts across the terraces, casting long shadows along the interlocking stones, the walls stand silent, monumental, and enduring. They invite contemplation of human ingenuity, of ambition etched into the landscape, and of mysteries that remain unsolved. Reminders that even in the most studied and admired sites, the past retains secrets, waiting for those willing to wonder, explore, and question. From the high terraces of Sacsayhuaman, where massive stones interlock with uncanny precision, we now journey to the arid plains of southeastern Turkey, to a site that upends conventional ideas of human history and civilization. Perched atop a hill overlooking the rolling landscape of the Şanlıurfa province lies Göbekli Tepe, often described as the oldest known temple in the world. Here, thousands of years before the first cities, before writing or metal tools, humans gathered to shape stone, construct monumental circles, and create a sacred space whose meaning continues to elude us. Approaching Göbekli Tepe, one is immediately struck by the scale and intricacy of the site. Massive T-shaped pillars, some carved to over 6 meters in height and weighing several tons, rise from the earth, arranged in circular enclosures. Many are adorned with bas-reliefs of animals, lions, foxes, snakes, birds, rendered with astonishing realism and symbolic abstraction. Some pillars bear enigmatic human-like motifs, with arms and hands suggested in subtle carving, while others remain plain, their silent presence hinting at intentionality and ritual significance. Walking among them, it is easy to feel the weight of human imagination pressed into stone. A weight that predates what we thought possible for hunter-gatherer societies. Göbekli Tepe dates back to at least 9,600 BCE, making it older than Stonehenge by some 6,000 years and predating the earliest known urban centers. Yet unlike later temples or ziggurats, Göbekli Tepe was constructed by a society of hunter-gatherers, people who had not yet developed agriculture on a large scale. How could such a society organize labor, carve enormous stones, and create monumental architecture without settled villages or complex bureaucratic systems? The sheer audacity of the construction challenges our understanding of social development and the very origins of civilization. The purpose of Göbekli Tepe remains intensely debated. Most researchers agree it served a ritual or religious function. Yet the absence of domestic structures, everyday artifacts, or permanent settlement nearby complicates interpretation. Was it a pilgrimage site, drawing people from scattered communities across the region? Did it function as a ceremonial center for seasonal gatherings, hunting rituals, or spiritual observances? Or did it serve an entirely symbolic purpose, a testament to early humans' desire to inscribe meaning upon their environment? The carvings on the pillars deepen the mystery. Many animals depicted at Göbekli Tepe would have been familiar to its builders, yet they are often stylized, placed in positions that seem deliberate, and sometimes combined in ways that suggest storytelling or coded communication. Some scholars propose that the motifs reflect cosmological or shamanistic beliefs, perhaps representing spirits, deities, or ancestral figures. Others speculate that the site encodes knowledge of the natural world, celestial patterns or cycles of life and death, embedding information into stone in a form that could be interpreted by those initiated into its symbolism. The construction itself raises profound questions. Many of the stones are quarried from nearby hills, yet the process of transporting, erecting, and carving them with tools available at the time would have required extraordinary coordination, ingenuity, and social cooperation. How did groups of hunter-gatherers achieve such feats, and why devote so much labor to a site that shows no evidence of habitation? Could this reflect a level of social complexity previously unimagined, or does it suggest knowledge and techniques lost to history, carefully practiced yet unrecorded? Speculative theories surrounding Göbekli Tepe abound, driven by the site's enigmatic nature. Some propose that it was a center of early astronomical observation, its pillars aligned with celestial events such as solstices or equinoxes. Others suggest it functioned as a temple for a long-lost spiritual tradition, a place of communion with the unseen or the divine. Fringe hypotheses even entertain ideas of prehistoric knowledge or civilizations far more advanced than previously believed. While such theories remain unverified, they underscore the awe-inspiring nature of Göbekli Tepe and the challenge it poses to conventional timelines of human development. One of the most striking aspects of Göbekli Tepe is the deliberate burial of the site around 8000 BCE. The enclosures were carefully filled in with soil, preserving the carvings and structures beneath. Why would its builders intentionally bury their monumental creation, effectively hiding it from future generations? Was it a ritual closure, a symbolic act of reverence, or a practical measure? The answer remains elusive, adding another layer of intrigue to an already confounding sight. Standing among the towering pillars today, one senses the echoes of human effort, imagination, and belief pressed into stone. The silence of the site is profound, yet it is filled with questions about human ambition, the capacity for cooperation, and the impulses that drove early societies to construct monumental spaces far beyond the scope of immediate survival or necessity. Göbekli Tepe invites contemplation of humanity's earliest efforts to understand the cosmos, the divine, and the self. And yet, despite decades of study, Göbekli Tepe remains partly inscrutable. How did its builders conceptualize such enormous architecture without precedent? What beliefs, knowledge, or social structures enabled them to organize this labor? And what other sites, tools, or ideas might remain hidden, buried beneath layers of time, waiting to reveal more about the dawn of civilization? As sunlight filters across the carved stones, casting long shadows that highlight the subtle reliefs of animals and symbols, Göbekli Tepe stands both ancient and timeless, a place where human imagination and mystery converge. It compels us to wonder not only about the past, but about the very roots of human culture, community, and the desire to shape the world with meaning. In the silent circles of stone, the questions endure, beckoning the curious to look closer, to ponder deeper, and to marvel at a mystery that continues to defy understanding. From the monumental enclosures of Göbekli Tepe, where stone circles speak of ritual, social complexity, and mysteries lost to time, we now travel to the windswept Orkney Islands off the northern coast of Scotland, to a place where the echoes of everyday life from 5,000 years ago remain remarkably intact. Here lies Skara Bird, a Neolithic village buried beneath earth and sand for millennia, preserved as if by accident, yet offering a hauntingly intimate glimpse into a long-vanished world. At first sight, Skara Bird appears almost otherworldly. The village consists of a cluster of 8 stone houses, their walls low but enduring, interconnected by narrow, covered passageways. Inside, built-in stone furniture, beds, dressers, and storage boxes remains in situ, as though the inhabitants might return at any moment. The interiors are simple yet purposeful, reflecting both the constraints and the ingenuity of people living on a windswept, often harsh landscape. The village seems frozen in time, a snapshot of daily life more than 5 millennia ago. Skara Bird was occupied between approximately 3180 BCE and 2500 BCE, making it older than the Great Pyramids of Giza. Its preservation is extraordinary, the result of centuries of sandstorms burying the settlement and shielding it from wind, rain, and human interference. When it was uncovered in 1850 after a severe storm, archaeologists and visitors alike were astonished by the level of detail preserved in its stone architecture. Unlike other Neolithic sites, where only foundations remain, Skara Bird provides a nearly complete view of domestic life, workspaces, living quarters, and communal organization. Despite this remarkable preservation, much about Skara Bird remains a mystery. How did these early settlers organize their society in a harsh, remote environment? What motivated them to construct durable stone houses instead of temporary wooden or turf structures more typical of the era? The choice to invest enormous labor into long-lasting dwellings suggests a stable, organized community with skills in stoneworking, architecture, and perhaps social coordination far beyond what is often assumed for Neolithic societies. The design of the houses is both practical and intriguing. Each dwelling is sunken slightly into the ground, likely to provide insulation against the bitter winds of the North Atlantic. The low, curved walls and compact floor plans make efficient use of space while offering protection. Yet the uniformity and planning of the village raise questions. Was there a guiding plan, a common understanding of architectural principles shared across the community, or did each household adapt independently to local conditions? The alignment of doorways, the consistent use of built-in furniture, and the presence of stone hearths suggest a level of sophistication and foresight that hints at social and cultural norms, now lost to time. Artifacts found within the houses add to the enigma. Stone tools, pottery fragments, and decorative items provide clues to daily activities, trade, and personal expression. Yet the absence of extensive grave goods or monumental structures, common in other Neolithic sites, leaves questions about social hierarchy and spiritual life. Were these people egalitarian, or did status exist in ways not immediately visible? Did the village serve purely as a domestic settlement, or was it part of a broader ritual or seasonal network of human activity across the Orkney Islands? The preservation of Skara Bird also raises intriguing questions about communication and knowledge. The inhabitants lived in isolation, yet they mastered complex building techniques and constructed durable homes capable of withstanding harsh climates for centuries. How did knowledge of construction, stone shaping, and village organization pass between generations? Were there social or spiritual imperatives guiding the layout and maintenance of the settlement? And, perhaps most compellingly, why was the village eventually abandoned, only to remain hidden beneath sand until rediscovery thousands of years later? Speculative theories surrounding Skara Bird abound, reflecting its unusual combination of intimacy and mystery. Some suggest that the settlement was part of a network of seasonal or ritual centers, aligned with celestial events or agricultural cycles. Others propose that the village reflects a highly organized society, capable of planning communal living with a sophisticated understanding of spatial arrangement, hygiene, and comfort in challenging conditions. Fringe hypotheses occasionally suggest even more enigmatic explanations: lost knowledge, forgotten technologies, or unknown social systems that allowed Neolithic communities to thrive in a seemingly inhospitable environment. While unproven, these ideas underscore the continuing fascination Skara Bird inspires. Walking through the narrow passageways and across the low stone thresholds today, one senses the tangible presence of the people who once lived here. The walls whisper of daily routines, tending fires, preparing food, carving tools, and creating small personal and communal artifacts. And yet, the absence of living occupants, the silence preserved for millennia, evokes the profound passage of time. The village feels alive and empty at once, a testament to human resilience and creativity, but also a reminder of how easily history can vanish beneath the sands. Skara Bird challenges modern assumptions about Neolithic life. It demonstrates that prehistoric humans could construct durable, functional, and well-planned settlements, balancing practicality with subtle artistry. It prompts reflection on the capacity for social cohesion, knowledge transfer, and innovation long before the emergence of writing, cities, or formalized governance. Yet it also preserves unanswered questions. Why did the settlement fall into disuse? and what social, environmental, or cultural forces led to its eventual abandonment. As the wind sweeps across the Orkney landscape, brushing against the exposed stones of Skara Brae, one cannot help but pause and imagine the lives that unfolded here. The village endures as both a record of daily existence and a profound mystery, offering insight into human ingenuity while leaving the mind to ponder the stories lost to time. In its silent walls and sunken passageways, the past continues to speak, inviting us to wonder, to question, and to marvel at the depth of human experience preserved beneath the sands of history. From the windswept stone houses of Skara Brae, where the domestic lives of Neolithic families remain remarkably preserved, we now descend beneath the earth to the island of Malta, into a place where silence, shadow, and stone converge in a labyrinth of mystery. Here lies the Hypogeum of Hal-Saflieni, a subterranean complex carved entirely from soft limestone, a multi-level necropolis whose chambers and corridors whisper of rituals, reverence, and human ingenuity that dates back more than 5,000 years. Approaching the Hypogeum today, one is struck by the sense of enclosure and intimacy. The entrance leads down a narrow, descending passageway into darkness, where the air is cool and still, and the light of the outside world fades to a distant memory. Inside, the rock walls are smooth and worn, shaped by human hands with astonishing precision. Carved staircases, niches, and chambers unfold across 3 subterranean levels, each space meticulously planned to accommodate both the living and the dead. It is not merely a tomb, it is a carefully orchestrated architectural feat, a subterranean city of the dead, whose purpose and construction continue to puzzle scholars and visitors alike. Discovered in the early 20th century, the Hypogeum of Hal-Saflieni revealed more than just burial chambers. Skeletal remains of thousands of individuals were found within, some placed in carefully carved niches, others seemingly stacked in layers over centuries. Yet the site was far from utilitarian. Elaborate carvings, delicate spiral motifs, and carefully shaped altars suggest that ritual and ceremony were central to the space. Was the Hypogeum merely a necropolis, or was it a sacred center where the living sought communion with the dead, or even with unseen spiritual forces? Dating to between 3,300 and 3000 BCE, the Hypogeum predates the Egyptian pyramids and some of the earliest known European megalithic sites. Its construction required immense skill, patience, and an understanding of structural stability in subterranean environments. The chambers are supported by the very rock from which they were hewn, yet the architects carved with such precision that even after millennia, the ceilings and walls remain intact. How did a prehistoric society without metal tools or advanced engineering calculate the distribution of weight or anticipate the pressures exerted by thousands of tons of overlying rock? The Hypogeum's acoustic properties deepen its mystery. Some chambers, particularly the so-called oracle room, amplify sound in a manner that suggests deliberate design. A whisper, a chant, or a tone resonates throughout the space, creating an otherworldly auditory experience. Was this an intentional feature, designed to enhance ritual, ceremony, or spiritual encounters? Or was it an accidental byproduct of the rock's natural properties, later imbued with symbolic meaning by those who entered the subterranean halls? Artifacts found within provide additional clues, yet raise as many questions as they answer. Simple tools, pottery, and figurines point to daily life and ritual practice, yet the absence of written records leaves interpretation largely speculative. Some figures appear deliberately stylized, with abstracted forms that may indicate symbolic, religious, or even astronomical significance. Could the carvings and arrangements reflect a cosmology, a belief system, or a form of prehistoric communication that is now irretrievably lost? The Hypogeum also challenges assumptions about prehistoric society. Constructing such a complex required not only technical skill, but significant social organization. Laborers, planners, and ritual specialists must have collaborated over generations to create a subterranean labyrinth of this scale. How was knowledge transferred and preserved over time? What cultural imperatives inspired the construction of such a monumental underground edifice? And, perhaps most hauntingly, why was it eventually sealed, leaving its treasures and mysteries hidden beneath layers of earth until rediscovered thousands of years later? Speculative theories abound, as they often do with enigmatic sites. Some suggest the Hypogeum may have served as a ritual center for ancestor worship, shamanistic practices, or early forms of spiritual initiation. Others propose that it functioned as an observatory, attuned to celestial cycles, or as a repository for sacred knowledge. More fringe ideas venture into extraordinary realms, imagining lost civilizations, advanced prehistoric engineering, or connections to mythic traditions now forgotten. While these remain unverified, they reflect the compelling aura of the Hypogeum, a place that inspires both rigorous study and imaginative wonder. Walking through its narrow corridors today, one can almost feel the presence of those who labored and worshipped here, their intentions etched into the very stone. The spiral motifs, carved niches, and carefully proportioned rooms evoke a society deeply attuned to the cycles of life and death, to the rhythms of human experience, and perhaps to forces beyond ordinary perception. The Hypogeum feels alive in its silence, a testament to both human ingenuity and the mysteries of belief that endure across millennia. The Hypogeum of Hal-Saflieni remains a profound enigma. Despite decades of excavation, study, and technological analysis, questions endure. How exactly was such a precise subterranean complex constructed with the tools of the Neolithic? What cultural, spiritual, or astronomical principles guided its design? And what knowledge, long forgotten, allowed its creators to conceive a space that could endure for thousands of years in such delicate balance beneath the earth? As light fades into shadow and echoes reverberate softly along carved limestone walls, the Hypogeum invites reflection on the depth of human creativity, the persistence of ritual, and the mysteries that continue to surround our earliest ancestors. It stands not merely as a tomb, but as a silent witness to human ambition, imagination, and the enduring questions of existence, questions that to this day remain unanswered, waiting for those willing to explore, wonder, and contemplate what lies hidden beneath the surface of history. From the subterranean corridors of the Hypogeum of Hal-Saflieni, where the lives and rituals of prehistoric Malta are etched into stone, we turn now to a different kind of mystery. One written not in limestone but in metal, hidden for millennia, and promising untold treasures and secrets. This is the story of the Copper Scroll, one of the most enigmatic and perplexing texts ever discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls, a unique artifact whose very existence has challenged scholars, historians, and treasure hunters alike. Unlike the fragile parchment or papyrus scrolls that typically comprise the Dead Sea collection, the Copper Scroll is composed entirely of thin sheets of hammered copper. Its surface is etched with inscriptions that survive intact, impervious to the ravages of time. Discovered in 1952 in Cave 3 near Khirbet Qumran, the scroll immediately captured the attention of scholars for both its material and its content. Whereas other scrolls contained religious, liturgical, or philosophical texts, the Copper Scroll reads like a treasure map, listing dozens of locations, each described with meticulous detail, allegedly containing gold, silver, and other valuable items hidden in the wilderness of ancient Judea. The scroll is extraordinary in multiple ways. Its language is straightforward yet cryptic, describing caches of wealth in ways that blend practical geography with esoteric references. Scholars have debated the precise meaning of its directions, questioning whether the treasures were ever real, hidden as part of a ritual or symbolic in nature. Some propose that the scroll reflects a genuine attempt to catalog treasures of the Second Temple, concealed before the Roman siege in 70 CE. Others suggest more metaphorical interpretations, arguing that the treasures may represent spiritual knowledge, coded messages, or allegorical wealth rather than material hoards. The Copper Scroll also raises questions about its creation and preservation. Crafted from metal, it required specialized skills and tools, and the letters were etched with precision to endure through centuries. Why was such effort devoted to creating a durable record? Was it intended as a permanent ledger, a secret meant to survive even if its creators perished, or as a protective measure to ensure that only those initiated into its knowledge could locate the hidden treasures? The scroll's resilience hints at an intention far beyond mere record-keeping. It is a deliberate artifact designed to communicate across time. Efforts to locate the treasures described in the scroll have spanned decades, engaging archaeologists, adventurers, and historians. Excavations have uncovered some promising sites, yet no treasure matching the scroll's detailed descriptions has ever been definitively recovered. Some locations may have been misinterpreted, lost to changes in the landscape, or deliberately concealed in ways that prevent modern discovery. Others posit that the treasures were retrieved long ago, vanished before the scroll itself was hidden or buried. Each attempt at resolution only deepens the mystery, leaving the Copper Scroll as both guide and enigma. The scroll's unusual format adds to its intrigue. Unlike ordinary manuscripts, the text is etched in reverse on copper sheets, joined to form a continuous, durable surface. The precision of the lettering suggests skilled craftsmanship and careful planning, implying a society capable not only of metallurgy, but also of organized record-keeping on a scale rarely associated with its historical context. What social or religious pressures prompted the creation of such an artifact? Were the treasures sacred, secular, or both? And who were the custodians of this knowledge, entrusted with preserving it across generations? Speculative theories abound, fueled by the scroll's tantalizing combination of concreteness and ambiguity. Some suggest the Copper Scroll points to a vast hidden treasury of the Second Temple, lost to history during the Roman conquest. Others envision secretive sects or priestly orders who concealed wealth to protect sacred objects, ritual tools, or ancient relics. Fringe hypotheses even link the scroll to broader legends of hidden treasures, lost civilizations, or divine protection over material and spiritual riches. Though unproven, these interpretations highlight the sense of wonder and possibility that the scroll evokes. The Copper Scroll also poses broader questions about the nature of secrecy, memory, and survival. Its creators understood the transience of human life and sought to ensure the persistence of their knowledge through the durability of metal. Yet the scroll has outlived its original context, becoming both artifact and puzzle. Its copper letters resist corrosion and decay, yet their meaning remains elusive, and the treasures they describe, if real, continue to elude the world. As we examine the inscriptions today, tracing the etched lines with our eyes, one can almost imagine the hands that hammered the metal, the minds that calculated the locations, and the urgency or devotion that drove them to create such a lasting record. The scroll is more than a list of riches. It is a testament to human foresight, secrecy, and ambition, as well as a reflection of the anxieties and hopes of a society facing existential threat. And yet, despite decades of study, the Copper Scroll remains profoundly mysterious. Were its treasures ever real, or were they symbolic placeholders for spiritual or social wealth? How were the locations chosen, and by what method did the creators ensure the secrecy and survival of this record? Could some of its hidden treasures still lie undiscovered, waiting for those capable of deciphering the map of an ancient world? The Copper Scroll challenges our understanding of history, of human ingenuity, and of the lengths to which people will go to protect knowledge and wealth. Its etched letters endure, silent yet provocative, hinting at riches, secrets, and stories lost to time. In the metallic glow of its preserved text, the past reaches across centuries, inviting us to ponder, explore, and wonder, reminding us that some mysteries, no matter how meticulously documented, may remain forever unsolved. From the cryptic etchings of the Copper Scroll, where metallic letters hint at hidden riches and long-lost secrets, we now turn to a small yet perplexing artifact unearthed in the sands of ancient Egypt. An object so unassuming in size yet so confounding in implication that it continues to stir debate among archaeologists, historians, and aviation enthusiasts alike. This is the Saqqara Bird, a wooden figurine discovered within the tombs of Saqqara, a site that has long been a repository of Egypt's most enduring mysteries. The Saqqara Bird is diminutive, measuring just under 15 centimeters in length, carved from a single piece of sycamore wood. Its shape is immediately striking: a streamlined body, a tail reminiscent of a vertical stabilizer, and wings that taper with an aerodynamic elegance far removed from the crude representations of birds typically found in Egyptian art. Some have noted the similarity to modern gliders or airplanes, prompting questions about the intentions and knowledge of the artisans who created it. How could a civilization, flourishing more than 2,000 years before the first powered flight, conceive of a shape that so closely resembles principles of aerodynamics? Unearthed in 1898 by archaeologist Emil Barrais during excavations of the Saqqara necropolis, the bird was originally catalogued as a mere toy or ceremonial object. It was placed in a burial context, associated with the tomb of Padi Imen, a priest from the late period of Egypt around 200 BCE. Yet, even in its initial presentation, its form defied conventional understanding. The elongated wings and pointed tail do not correspond to any bird species native to the region, nor do they match stylistic norms of Egyptian figurines intended purely for symbolic or ritual purposes. Could this artifact have had a function beyond the ceremonial? A practical experiment in flight? A symbolic representation of movement, or even an esoteric tool designed to embody concepts of the sky and the soul? Researchers examining the Saqqara bird have noted its delicate craftsmanship. The wings, though flat and slightly curved, suggest knowledge of balance and lift, while the tail's vertical alignment hints at an understanding of directional stability. Some modern experiments, involving replicas of the bird, have demonstrated that it can glide when thrown, though it lacks features necessary for powered flight. Does this imply that ancient Egyptians explored basic aerodynamics as a conceptual or recreational endeavor? Or is it possible that the object served purely symbolic purposes, embodying ideas about the journey of the soul, the flight of the Ba, or the transcendence of the mortal realm into the divine? The context of its discovery adds layers of intrigue. Saqqara itself is a necropolis of unparalleled significance, a landscape of monumental tombs, pyramids, and funerary temples spanning millennia. Objects buried here were carefully chosen to accompany the dead, often imbued with symbolic weight and spiritual meaning. Was the Saqqara bird a ritual implement, intended to aid the soul in its journey to the afterlife? Or could it have been an educational tool, demonstrating principles of flight to priests, initiates, or artisans who sought to understand the natural world in ways that blend observation, ritual, and imagination? Speculative interpretations of the Saqqara bird abound, fueled by its uncanny resemblance to modern aircraft. Some suggest it represents evidence of ancient technological knowledge, possibly lost to history, implying that early civilizations understood principles of aerodynamics long before the modern era. Others argue for a more symbolic or artistic explanation, proposing that the object reflects the Egyptians' fascination with birds, the sky, and the divine, translating abstract spiritual concepts into tangible form. Both perspectives underscore the enduring allure of the artifact, its capacity to provoke wonder and debate, bridging the gap between empirical study and imaginative speculation. The craftsmanship and preservation of the Saqqara Bird also highlight the sophistication of Egyptian artisans. Despite its small size, the object demonstrates a meticulous attention to proportion and form, suggesting deliberate design choices rather than accidental resemblance to flying machines. The use of sycamore wood, a material chosen for its durability and workability, indicates an awareness of resources and techniques suited to the object's intended purpose, whether symbolic, ceremonial, or experimental. How did the artisans conceptualize such a precise form, and what inspired them to render it in miniature rather than full scale? The Saqqara Bird invites reflection not only on ancient Egyptian culture, but also on broader questions of human curiosity and creativity. Its existence challenges assumptions about the boundaries of ancient knowledge, the ways in which observation of nature can inspire technological experimentation, and the symbolic depth encoded in seemingly simple objects. Could the ancient Egyptians have possessed empirical understanding of flight principles, passed down through oral or ritualized instruction that never reached subsequent generations? Or is the artifact's true significance more abstract, a meditation on the human desire to transcend earthly limits through form, symbol, and imagination? As one contemplates the small, streamlined figure today, it is easy to envision the hands that carved it, the eyes that studied its lines, and the minds that sought to imbue it with purpose. Whether a toy, a ritual object, or a proto-aviation experiment, the Saqqara Bird embodies the intersection of human ingenuity, spirituality, and curiosity. It whispers of knowledge, lost or symbolic, encoded in a form that continues to defy easy categorization. Despite centuries of scholarship, the mystery endures. Was the Saqqara Bird simply a symbolic artifact, or did it reflect a deeper understanding of flight principles yet to be fully comprehended? What ideas, observations, or traditions guided its creation? And what does it tell us about the capacity of ancient civilizations to blend art, science, and spirituality in ways that remain elusive to modern inquiry? The Saqqara Bird, small yet profound, remains a testament to the ingenuity, imagination, and enduring mystery of the human past. It challenges us to wonder, to question, and to consider the subtle intersections of observation, belief, and creativity that continue to shape our understanding of history. In its carved wings and pointed tail, the past takes flight, urging us to explore the possibilities that lie hidden just beyond the edge of comprehension. From the small, enigmatic Saqqara Bird, where a delicate wooden artifact hints at the ingenuity and curiosity of ancient Egypt, we now journey to the rolling hills and granite outcrops of southeastern Africa, to a place where stone walls rise from the earth in monumental silence. Here lie the great Zimbabwe ruins, the remnants of a civilization whose scale, craftsmanship, and enduring mystery continue to inspire awe and debate centuries after their construction. Great Zimbabwe sprawls across a rugged plateau, its massive stone walls interwoven with winding enclosures, towering towers, and terraces that seem to emerge organically from the landscape itself. Unlike many ancient ruins, these structures were built entirely without mortar, the enormous granite blocks fitting together with astonishing precision. The largest of these edifices, the Great Enclosure, stands as a testament to the architectural skill and vision of its creators, its curved walls gracefully enclosing space in a manner both functional and symbolic. Even today, the walls evoke a sense of permanence, a deliberate assertion of presence on the land, defying both time and the natural forces that have shaped the surrounding terrain constructed between the 11th and 15th centuries. Great Zimbabwe was the political and economic heart of a vast regional kingdom. Archaeological evidence indicates it was a center for trade, linking the interior of Africa to the Indian Ocean coast, with goods such as gold, ivory, and exotic shells passing through its gates. Yet, despite the clarity of its historical and economic significance, Great Zimbabwe retains layers of mystery. How did the builders quarry and transport massive granite blocks without modern tools or machinery? What social, political, or religious imperatives guided the planning of the city, its monumental architecture, and its labyrinthine passageways? The scale and precision of Great Zimbabwe's walls invite deeper questions about the civilization's organization. Constructing structures that could withstand centuries of erosion required careful planning, skilled labor, and a sophisticated understanding of engineering principles. The great enclosure, with its towering curved walls and precisely fitted stones, suggests not only technical expertise but also a nuanced vision of spatial harmony and symbolic expression. Was the design meant to assert royal power, embody cosmological beliefs, or protect sacred spaces? Or did it serve multiple purposes simultaneously, blending utility, prestige, and spiritual meaning into a single monumental complex? Artifacts recovered from Great Zimbabwe further deepen the intrigue. Soapstone figurines, pottery, and beads reveal an aesthetic sensibility and a complex social life, while trade items from distant regions testify to a far-reaching network of exchange. Yet, the purpose of certain artifacts remains elusive. The famous soapstone birds, carved with meticulous detail, have been interpreted as totems, symbols of authority, or objects with ritual significance. Could these small yet striking carvings offer insight into a worldview lost to time, where power, spirituality, and artistry converged in tangible form? Great Zimbabwe's construction techniques also raise questions about the knowledge systems of its builders. The precision with which the massive stones were shaped and fitted without mortar speaks to advanced understanding of geometry, balance, and stability. How was this knowledge transmitted across generations? What social structures, labor organization, or ritual practices enabled such monumental projects to be realized in a society without written records? The ruins themselves stand as silent testimony, challenging modern assumptions about the sophistication of pre-colonial African civilizations. Speculative interpretations of Great Zimbabwe abound, reflecting both its grandeur and its enduring mysteries. Some historians suggest that the city was a royal capital and ceremonial center, a place where kings displayed their wealth and consolidated political power. Others explore more symbolic readings, proposing that the walls and enclosures encoded spiritual or cosmological principles, aligning the human and natural worlds in ways that we are only beginning to comprehend. Fringe theories, now largely discredited, once attributed the ruins to foreign civilizations, reflecting the astonishment and bias of early European explorers who could not reconcile the scale of the structures with local ingenuity. Yet modern scholarship affirms that Great Zimbabwe is a profoundly African achievement, a testament to human creativity, resourcefulness, and cultural sophistication. The location of Great Zimbabwe itself adds to its allure. Nestled among granite hills and overlooking fertile valleys, the site demonstrates careful attention to the surrounding environment. Water sources, grazing lands, and trade routes were all accessible, suggesting deliberate site selection that balanced practical needs with symbolic or ceremonial considerations. How much of the city's layout was dictated by geography and how much by cultural or ritual imperatives? Were the builders influenced by astronomical events, spiritual beliefs, or patterns of ancestral veneration? Walking among the ruins today, the immense walls and intricate passageways convey a palpable sense of human ambition, resilience, and imagination. The interplay of stone and landscape invites contemplation of both the people who built it and the civilization they created, a society capable of extraordinary achievements, yet leaving behind questions that remain unresolved. The silence of Great Zimbabwe is not merely absence, it is a space where time has accumulated, where the material legacy of human labor speaks across centuries, yet leaves its narrative incomplete. Despite extensive research and archaeological exploration, Great Zimbabwe retains an air of mystery. How did its society organize monumental construction, trade networks, and governance? What cultural and spiritual frameworks guided daily life and monumental expression? And perhaps most compellingly, why did the city decline, leaving behind a landscape of ruins whose original vitality now survives only in stone? The Great Zimbabwe ruins stand as both a monument and a riddle, an enduring symbol of human ingenuity and the mysteries that history preserves. In their towering walls, intricate enclosures, and enduring presence, they invite reflection, curiosity, and awe. They remind us that even in the absence of written records, stone can speak, revealing glimpses of past achievements, social complexity, and questions that remain unanswered, waiting for those willing to explore, wonder, and imagine what might still lie hidden within the remnants of this ancient African kingdom. From the grandeur of Great Zimbabwe, where massive walls still whisper of ancient kings and lost empires, we turn now to a far more delicate and deeply puzzling object, the Lolladoff Plate. A small stone disc with a story that blends myth, speculation, and the fringes of archaeology, it continues to captivate those who wonder whether our ancient past holds more than old stones. According to the tale, this plate was first brought to light shortly after World War II in an unlikely place, a market in northern India. A Polish academic named Professor Lolladoff allegedly purchased it there, told that it came from a secretive mountain people identified as the Zopa or Dropa. These highland dwellers, the story goes, used the disc in religious ceremonies. The plate itself is said to be carved from stone. Some accounts claim granite or a similarly hard rock, and measures around a foot in diameter. What makes the Lolladoff Plate so extraordinary are its engravings. A spiral band winds from the center to the edge, etched into the surface as a continuous groove. Along that spiral are strange symbols. Some claim they are hieroglyph-like characters. Others point to abstract signs that no known script matches. Near the center of the plate, a humanoid figure appears, a sleek, bald-headed being with slender limbs. Some who study the image see not a human, but a gray alien archetype elsewhere on the plate, depictions of a lenticular object, a flying saucer, and reptilian or spider-like shapes add to the uncanny impression that this is more than a ritual dish. Believers argue that the plate is perhaps 12,000 years old, linking it to tales of extraterrestrial visitors. According to some versions of the story, an English scientist even mounted an expedition to Tibet to investigate a tribe called the Zopa, who claimed to have preserved similar discs. The myth builds as he supposedly learned that these people believed their ancestors came from the clouds. Yet for all its intrigue, the Lolladoff Plate sits at the boundary between myth and reality. Scholars who have examined the evidence closely point out serious red flags. The story's earliest source comes from a book that many now view as sensationalized. According to researchers, at least some of the tale was deliberately crafted to captivate readers. Critical voices also question whether Professor Lolladoff ever existed. No credible academic records confirm his identity. Likewise, the Tibetan tribe of Zopa does not match any documented ethnic group. The name more closely resembles a term for nomadic herders in Tibet, not an alien lineage. Then there is the matter of the plate itself. Despite claims that it now resides in a museum in East Berlin, no such institution has verified its existence. The only evidence consists of a few grainy photographs and sketches, Believed by skeptics to originate from a rough drawing and a reproduced copy, archaeologists also challenge the interpretations of the iconography. The humanoid figure, the spirals, and the lenticular object may not necessarily point to extraterrestrial visitors, some suggest, but rather to symbolic or mythological concepts. In that sense, the plate might be better understood not as proof of alien contact, but as an imaginative piece of folklore, a modern myth projected into the distant past. Still, the Lolladoff Plate persists in popular culture. For some, it offers tantalizing what-ifs. What if ancient people did witness phenomena that inspired these shapes? What if the spiral is not just decoration, but a cosmic map? What if the figures are not literal beings, but archetypes of spiritual journeys? Even if the plate's provenance is doubtful, its symbolic power remains potent. Standing figuratively before the plate, one feels caught between skepticism and wonder. Is it a clever fabrication? A 20th century hoax wrapped in alien lore? Or might it preserve, however distorted, a memory of something extraordinary, real or imagined? Could it reflect secret knowledge or simply the timeless human impulse to dream of life beyond our world? The Lolladoff Plate remains, at its core, a mystery. Whether object or legend, artifact or fiction, it challenges us to consider how stories emerge, how they spread, and why they endure. What does the persistence of this tale tell us about our fascination with the unknown? And even if the plate itself is a hoax, might the questions it raises about origin, evidence, and belief be more revealing than any artifact ever could be?